Hello, everybody. We are live. I hope you can hear us. I hope you can see us. I don't think the person sitting next to me, oh, yeah, I pointed in the right direction. The person sitting next to me needs any introduction. You know her. You love her. You love seeing her video. You love seeing her defend animals. The one, the only, the amazing Lucie Munson.
Thank you for the amazing introduction.
Love it. Love it. Yeah, Lucy is here. We're gonna discuss some activism and cool things. I'll check out whoever is in the house, and maybe if you have questions. I know usually when I have people who I talk to on the live stream, I forget to look at everybody's questions. But this time I'll do it differently, and I will set a timer so that I don't forget about you, awesome viewers out there, so that I can maybe look at questions and stuff. So let's just say hello to everybody. Ali is here. Hello, Ali. Awesome, Ali. Not another plant-based utilitarian. I don't think I've seen you here before, but hello and welcome.
Great name.
I hope you're not a utilitarian. I hope you're not a utilitarian. I hope you're not. I don't know, like if your name is sarcastic or if it's.
I think it is.
Yeah,
I'm not sure, but I think it is.
Yeah, yeah. Martin is here. Hello, Martin. Awesome to see you.
Hey, everybody.
Marcelo. Hey, Marcelo. Nice to see you. Mike, the Corn King. And yeah, and Natalie. Natalie, as always. Awesome, Natalie. USAEV. Hello. Neil. Hello. Looking forward to this. Robin. Yes, nice. Awesome. People are dropping by. Love it. Love it. So, Lucy, I don't know how to start this, to be honest. Let's
He's
start.
an anti-utilitarian. Sorry, you just specified.
Oh yeah. I'm an anti-utilitarian. Nice. That's the smart position to be in. Honestly, like being utilitarian is.
I mean, when it comes to veganism, I guess, yeah. Outside of that,
I would say.
I don't know. Depends, I guess.
We need to dive into this. Well, where do you stand on utilitarianism, Lucy? Why is it? Where do you find utilitarianism to work?
I guess when it comes to the environment, well, like it cannot be like really deontologic because like it's a spectrum inevitably, you know. It's always going to be like on a spectrum. Yeah, I don't think you can really. It's not the same thing. Like there's stuff like that. Like for example, being anti-rape or like stuff like this, it has to be deontology. But
yeah,
for other things like veganism, it has to be deontology as well. But utilitarianism, when it comes to the environment, at least, I think it would make sense.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I would say, it's hard to say, right? Because is utilitarianism always just? I know it's about stats, right? It's basically taking into which stat matters more than others, but just because utilitarianism is about stats, are stats also utilitarianism, right? Because even when it comes to the environment, I still think I assume you're also not a utilitarian when it comes to the environment, because you wouldn't propose that we kill humans or animals just to save the environment.
No, I think you're right. It doesn't make sense too much, but I just because I keep thinking of utilitarianism like it's like about a spectrum, but it's not only that. It's like literally, it's like about the pleasure and pain thing. You know, like I'm not even very good at explaining that. I think you would do a better job at this than me. You know, like balancing the pleasure and if anyone in the chat maybe knows like a good well done definition, because I'm not very good at I'm not exactly, I mean I know what it is, but I don't remember the definition. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
yeah, I can identify utilitarianism, but I don't know the definition, if that's what it is. Yeah. And I also don't know if utilitarianism actually applies to everything statistics wise, right? Like maybe I agree with you that
I think it's like everything in your life, like you measure everything where, like, is it actually like it's about pleasure and pain, like is this, actually producing the most pleasure and minimizing the most pain, something like that. Sorry, I cut you.
No. That's a good point. Yeah, because you're basically measuring the amount of pleasure and the amount of pain, and you're doing a balancing act where if there's more pleasure on this, I don't even think it's necessarily just two items, right? I think it's just one, which is actually, I don't know. Like,
Someone in
we're
the chat,
diving
come
in.
on.
Yeah, explain it to us. If you have utilitarianism and you have two solutions, a person is utilitarian, and you have one, he has to do an action and he has to choose between two actions, right? And one is a lot of pleasure, a little pain, and one is less pleasure but no pain. Or actually,
Well,
no,
you
one
can.
is a
I
lot
think
of
you can.
pleasure. Yeah,
Yeah, I
because
think
do
you
they
can.
cancel it out? So I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, it's like, I think a good example is like welfareism. I mean, welfareism, like you have like the animals are going through pain, obviously, and they are enslaved, and they're not free, etc. But if like the amount of suffering is less, sorry, my English is kind of not great right now, but if it's less than the amount of pleasure that the amount of humans get from it, it's fine, kind of thing. That's why it doesn't work
Okay,
when
yeah,
it comes to that.
I think Mike put it very well. A family of normative ethical theories that prescribe actions that maximize happiness and well-being for the affected individuals. Like it. In other words, utilitarian ideas encourage actions that ensure the greatest good for the greatest number.
But when there's a victim, like for example, if there's, okay, this is a very gory example, but it just popped in my head. Like,
I love it.
if you have a room of like rapists and one victim, in a utilitarian way, like if there's a lot of people getting a benefit from raping that person, for example, you know what I mean? Like, that's how we can see how that doesn't work in these scenarios where there's like a victim of something that is never okay, that cannot be made better by it being less painful. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah. I don't know, like,
But a true welfarist, I think, would be vegan in and of itself, because like it makes it like I don't think they're taking the animals' interest into account, like when it comes to freedom and stuff like that. They're only taking into account the suffering aspect. And so if you were a true welfarist, I guess maybe you would actually be vegan, because you would see that. Oh, but no, I guess they only care about the pain factor. They don't really care about other interests. That's the problem as well. No, never mind. I'm rambling, but
oh my God. Thank you, Ulf. I need to do a thing, right? I need to find a thing, because I know Sky does the ting ting ting.
the song and stuff, the dance.
My guitar is out of tune and I don't know how to play the guitar, so I'll just do this for it's really out of tune. Thank you.
Strip. Marcelo.
Strip, yeah. Later. It's pretty cold in my house actually today, so it's like 16 degrees. So yeah, I don't let me see what that is for all you US folks. That's 60 Fahrenheit for everybody else. Anyway, anyway, yes, Lucie. So I don't know. I want to get to know a bit about your vegan journey first, and then we'll dive more into activism, and maybe we'll touch upon utilitarianism also. I like already the discussion where we were going. So, how long have you been vegan, and what is that one thing that clicked in your head and made you go vegan?
Yeah, well, I don't know if you've seen, but I had like a live with Carnism Debunked about the fact I was an ex vegan kind of thing, and I basically explained. Yeah, well, I explained that I thought. I mean, I guess I was a little bit confused still in that live, but like I wasn't really vegan when I turned fully plant-based, and also like I was like trying to, no, even I had wool stuff. What? Never mind. I wasn't vegan. I was plant-based, but I didn't understand the definition of veganism until very recently. So like a year ago or something like that. I was plant-based and all that, but I wasn't understanding it, so I wouldn't say I was vegan in that sense, because that I wasn't against the use and exploitation of animals. I was
Yeah.
more welfareist, in not I guess some type of utilitarian, until I got the definition, and I was like, oh, that makes way more sense. Anyway, so when I was like 14 or 13, I became vegetarian, because I
Wow.
just like on the spot I realized like we don't need to do this and it's horrific. And then I watched Gary Ruffsky, who made me plant based, and then I went back to vegetarianism, and then plant based a couple times during my teen years, and then at 20 I went back to plant based for now 6 years. So yeah, that's pretty much what happened, I guess.
Oh, that's yeah, it's very similar to me also. Like I also went back and forth with plant-based and vegetarianism. But is there one thing that clicked in your head, like something that you heard that said, okay, no, I need to be vegan, not plant-based?
Well, yeah, actually, it happened when I was doing activism and I was learning from David C. Arenas. I learned so much from David C. Arenas. And he has a big thing about how, like, veganism, like the original definition. And so I just stumbled upon that. And then I was like, yeah, that makes actually a lot of sense. So that's how I did understand it, I
No.
guess.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah, that makes sense indeed. And that's once you realize that you want to be vegan, you never felt like going back anymore, right? It just made sense to you.
Or in terms of like you mean plant-based or vegan? Like vegan?
No, actually vegan, actually vegan.
Well, I was an activist already, so I was very committed already.
Oh,
But
so you
yeah.
were plant-based activist and then vegan?
Yeah, because
Interesting.
I didn't understand the definition, so I was advocating for less suffering and things like that, which is understandable. But then, you know what I mean. So
I
I
know
was
what you
plant-based,
mean.
like,
Okay.
yeah, like I was trying to avoid like all. I mean, I was avoiding all animal products and stuff like that, but I had still like stuff in my closet that was secondhand wool and stuff. I hadn't even checked it. It was like, okay. So things like that. But anyways, I mean, I know a lot of people it's the same thing, but it's more consistent if you don't have that, right? Because if you had a human, you had their teeth in your house or their hair that was taken from them forcefully and that they didn't want, like they didn't sell their hair or something like that, and you would not use that anymore because you're against it, and so messed up and gross also.
Yeah. It kind of reminds you of that act, right? If you have something like
Yeah.
that in your house.
Yeah, it hurts you as well because you envision the victim, or you remember the victim at that moment as well. So you don't want to use that at all.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Okay. Interesting. I mean, it's interesting because why it's interesting to me, because you mentioned reducing harm, and my next question was actually, which definition of veganism speaks to you more? Is it about animal rights? Is it about reducing harm? So I'm guessing that kind of answers the question, but please go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, well, basically, like there's like the vegan society's definition, like the modern one, and then there's the original one. Like the people who made the vegan definition, who actually invented the word in the 40s in the UK, they spent 7 years really like thinking about like the definition, and they wanted to make sure that it was the most clear and the most specific, and like the most, not specific I guess, but yeah, the most clear and the most powerful, the one that made the most sense. And so they nailed it down to like it's the sense against animal use and exploitation. Basically, like humans should not use other animals as objects and should not benefit from them, whatever, in that sense. So yeah, I mean, to me that's the only real one, because I guess there are other definitions, but I don't see them as, I mean, I understand them, but I think that when you think about the like the new vegan society definition, when you think about it, it doesn't really, it's not as powerful as the original one, and it can have actually, it can make people go towards reducitarianism instead of actually the vegan stance. So that's why I also really don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. Yeah, it's true. The definition that's about the, I think it says something like as much as it's practicable and possible
Mhm.
to try to abstain from using animals and animal products as much as it's practicable and practicable or something like that. Yeah, that definition is not. It still puts animals like, yeah, we should be treating them nicely, but after all, they're animals. Come on, as
Exactly.
long as
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
practical. Yeah,
You
yeah,
would you
yeah. I
say
mean,
that like you only raped, like you only don't like use someone else as an object, like for example, you don't enslave people. You know what I mean? Like it like if you were putting this definition and replacing other animals with humans, it's like, and also like I understand saying that, because there are, for example, there are certain medications that you need as a person that are tested on animals, and it's not yet possible, and if you don't take them you would be really in a bad state, whatever. So it doesn't make it okay to necessarily use those medications, but also, like, I mean, we're in a non-vegan world, and we need to push for these medications to be non-tested on animals in the future, whatever, things like that. And as horrible as it is, like, it's not gonna necessarily help, I think, to say to people, don't do that. But what I want to say is, like, just, even if this is like a unique situation where, even if it's not okay to, like, we used animals for that, it's not, you didn't choose that, you don't support that, but it's just the only thing right now. And so, yeah, we just have to push for more vegans in that sense, so that people actually push for this to not happen anymore. But anyways, someone told me when I was actually asking them about that, because I didn't see the problem with this in the first place. And the person actually was David. I had a lot of conversations about this stuff with him. Was that, it's redundant to say that in the first place. You wouldn't, like, I mean, it's implied, that it is, like, as much as we can, because if it's not possible, like, it's just not possible, kind of thing. Like, no one is advocating for something that's not possible. But if you say, as much as it's practicable and possible, whatever, people will interpret that to, like, in the way that serves them the best, and they will not be honest about it. They will say, like, well, it's not really feasible for me right now, because I don't have vegan restaurants around me, or something like that, like something that's completely silly and not actually what we meant by it, you know? And they will actually just reducitarians. They will only do it when it's, um, how you call it? When it's a good time for them to not use animals, kind of thing.
yeah. I know what you mean. It's also why, I mean, in my previous outreaches, I would use the word necessary, or unnecessary, or needless,
Yeah,
and
but even that they can turn it around. But yeah, yeah.
yeah, that can be turned around. Exactly. That's why I want to no longer use it anymore. I do
Yeah.
feel it still helps people, because if you ask a person, is it okay to kill an animal? A lot of people will be like, yeah, I don't care. It's just, yeah, if I eat them afterwards, it's all fine. So that's why I like to add unnecessary to it, so that people go like, oh, okay, well, if it's unnecessary, then no, just to emphasize on the idea. But yeah, you're right. When we give things like need, want, practicable to people, they'll just see it not as a direction, but rather
Yeah, as an option.
as an
Yeah.
option. Exactly. That's a very good point. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that. Okay. So we align with the definition of veganism. I like it. Well, it took me a while to get this, by the way. I wasn't
Me
here
too.
on the. I can't say I was here from the start. I mean, I did believe this from the start, but I just couldn't enunciate it from the start, right? I guess that's kind of what my problem was, which I couldn't phrase it in a way that makes sense in a society where, I don't know, because you've been taught your whole life, right, that animals are somehow inferior, and we should be treating them as inferior, or as not necessarily objects, but also not people, something in the middle of it. So
Mhm. Well, we treat them as objects, but then we pretend they're not, kind of thing. Like, you know what I mean? Like, that we don't treat them as objects, but when we do.
that's a very good point. Yes. Okay.
And I just wanted to say something also about, like, the
Yeah.
phrasing aspect. Sorry. I've okay, it's interesting. My husband is not an activist, but he used to be. I mean, whenever I say animals instead of other animals or non-human animals, he gets upset, because it's like, we are animals. You're making, like, a distinction between these animals and humans like as if we're so different, and that's harmful. And I completely agree. It's just that it's hard to kind of like remember that all the time when you say animals, you know. And so I really try now to not say
uh,
just animals, because subconsciously really like the words we use really do something to people's minds, you know. And it really changes the paradigm slowly for people, I think. As hard as it can be to remember this shit, I think it can be helpful if we try to push for that more, you know. What do you think about that?
I like that. I just wrote it down because I like it so much. So I wrote down to always say non-human animals. That's a very good point, right? Because if we always say animals, animals will always be like the separate category to us.
Yeah.
Whereas if we introduce ourselves as animals and we call them non-human animals, then it's already a big distinction. And big distinction, yes. And I like that. That's a very good point. Yeah, this is why I like having these streams. I always learn something from them. That's always good. Okay. I mean, we're already deep into it, but I'll just go by the questions that I ask, so that we'll get even deeper, I guess. So, I mean, everybody knows you do awesome outreach.
Thank you.
Have several methods. Are you nervous when you go to outreach? Were you nervous the first time when you did it outreach?
I always feel like I'm gonna crap my pants every single time. I have to drag myself out of the house. It's very hard. Like it's, I don't like. I mean, it's not that I don't like it. It's just like it's. I don't think it's. I think it's rare for activists to not be super nervous. I'm not sure, but I think because I only heard like people be like, "Oh my god, it's really, it's hard to put yourself out there for something that's so triggering and not like people hate vegans." You know what I mean? So yes, and
Yeah,
also like just the pressure of like, oh, I don't want to do a bad job, and then they don't feel like they're not gonna be held accountable or something. And also it's filmed, so it's like an added pressure, whatever. But yeah. What about you? Do
yeah,
you?
no. Oh hell yeah, yeah. I get nervous, but like for me, it's weird because for me, it's I get nervous when I go and film on my own. Then when I go to AV, I get nervous because I say, oh, maybe it's easier when I film on my own than when I do it with the free. I'm like, oh, maybe it was easier with the AV or on my own. It's just because it's different styles of talking to people and approaching people, and I'm like, I get nervous. Yeah, like AV especially has that whole protocol where you have to do it like this, so it's a bit more
Mm.
strict. And when I do it on my own, I actually have notes now. I don't even like I have a paper and I read from it mostly when I talk to people at the beginning, at least.
Oh
Afterwards, when
yeah.
we start
In the
getting
beginning, it's
deeper,
so hard to remember, right? All the questions, all the like, order and everything.
yeah, and it's also that I notice. I think if I had like one of those clipboards, well, not clipboards, but one of those things that holds on the paper, and would maybe if I also had a lab coat or something, people would take me like, "Oh, this guy's serious. He's really doing a social experiment." But
That's a good idea to get the lab coat or something to go the extra mile. You know.
oh, fuck
Interesting.
it, I'll write it down. Okay, if you like it, I thought I'd write it
Yeah.
down. I don't know. I didn't know
No, but
about
that
it.
would make it more like a game, and so people want to participate more. Little do they
Yeah,
know.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. It's I've had mixed feelings about the let's do, I'm doing a social experiment thing. I have some people were like, yeah, that's cool, and some people were like, uh, you're trapping me. I don't like this. I'm stopping. And there were people who stopped mid experiment because the questions were too
mhm.
obvious to them. So they're like, no,
Yeah,
no,
same.
no.
But I think you have to say that in the beginning because, like, I feel like they give you way more grace because they've consented to it. You know that it's gonna
Yeah,
be
that's
obvious
true.
as hell. Oh, also, I something that I don't know how. I mean, I feel like the method I watched, like in my life, I reacted to you. You know, like I feel like the way you did it could be adapted just like I adapted mine in this style. But basically, something that I want to implement this weekend actually is instead of asking them for every question, what do you think about blah blah blah, I'm gonna ask them right or wrong and then do the question, so it's much more fast, and then I will ask them sometimes why is that or something, so that it's not as long because my questions are like they're always so repetitive, you know, because they're like I want to really be specific so that I can make them see that they already said that for humans kind of thing. and use it later. But it, to them, it's like, well, why do you ask me almost the same question every time? So
That's a very good point, right or wrong. And it's also that I actually wrote down that I have to kind of tailor my questions and get them in a place where they're, well, I was said something towards the yes/no, but right/wrong kind of makes more sense than yes/no. Or
I think that's the same kind of thing, I guess.
yeah.
But also, I think it's important to still be like, to ask like why. But if you say right or wrong, it's a little bit more, I don't know, it's more like a game, like a, and as much, I feel like it's great to make it like a game, because it's just more entertaining also for the audience who's watching the video, but also for the, and also that way, just thinking about editing, if you're editing that kind of style where you say right or wrong, you can actually do several questions without the explanation, and then do the explanation when you want. So you could be really doing something cool for editing as well. So I really want to try that. Could be cool.
Yeah, I've been thinking about doing that myself also, to exactly as you said it, because for editing it would help out a lot, and it would simplify the editing, and you could make so many more things. By the way, the timer has rung. So let's look at the chat. I'll start going down. But if everybody has questions, by the way, as I said, I'm going to put a timer so that we can answer some questions. Have you guys ever thought of doing a trolley problem style interaction? We could do that.
What do you mean by that? Like the utilitarian? I mean, I feel like isn't it like a utilitarian?
It kind of is, kind of like a
experiment?
utilitarian. It's a utilitarian thought experiment, but you don't have to be utilitarian to approach
Maybe
it.
you could make it in a way, like maybe that I never thought of doing that. I don't know. What about you?
Yeah, I think I did it with Mike. It was awesome, but yeah, we could do it at some point. Yeah, I mean, I think today with Lucy we have so much to discuss that I don't know if we'll get to a trolley problem, but if we do, yeah, I'll love it. Oh, logical consistency is here. Hello, logical consistency. And
Hello.
how do you make your sign that folds in half and fits in your backpack? I'll show you.
Damn.
So I'll show you what not to do and what to do quickly. I'll be quick, okay? So I have this really, there's a store here where you can buy this polyester things that we make. And I used it at a lot of climate protests and a lot of stuff. So that the reason why it's like this is because it had a sign before that and I ripped it. And for this one, this is how not to do. I bought some hinges and I cut it in half and then put hinges on it. And it sits nicely. It's okay. But that's not, don't do that. That was way overkill. The easiest thing to do is just like glue a piece of paper. It's a thicker paper. When I go to the print store, I ask them to print it on a thicker paper. It's a thicker paper. It's A3, and this is 2 A4s. And then I just glue them to them. And it sits on its own. Simple.
I might do something like that. I don't know. I only have an A4. It's a very small sign, but it works, I guess. So, I mean, also I'm in Main Street, so like the people that I'm trying to, like, that are supposed to see my sign are quite close. Not necessarily like you. I feel like you're in an area where there's a lot of people, like very far distance, so yeah, makes sense.
I mean, it's not necessarily far distance. Everybody passes by me, but I notice that everybody's like, wants to read the sign fast to decide whether they want to come or not. And
yeah,
it's better if they see it from a further distance. I know Garuda TVT's comment sections, they just waste people's time like other trolls. Yes, Garuda is wasting people's times. If I hear the word utilitarian one more time, no, I'm not. But at the same time, I find that a ton of vegans are talking about utilitarianism lately and making false claims about other vegans without fully understanding their position. Yeah. I noticed also that within the vegan community, there is some divide here and there on topics and calling names and I mean, I don't know if calling somebody a utilitarian is calling names, but it kind of is, I guess, in this.
Why would it be?
because it's like it's implying that you don't really care about animals, but rather you're this person who does calculations and you care about, oh well, more deaths like this, or that you didn't really look into the vegan, because I feel like, as you
Hmm.
put it, right, as vegans, we all kind of went through the same path, I guess. At some point we were about reducing harm, and then at some point we realized, wait, fuck, no, it's actually each individual matters, and they're all pretty much have equal intrinsic value to us or to any other individual. So therefore it's not a utilitarian problem. So in that sense, it kind of says like, oh, you haven't gotten there yet. Oh, I got there before you.
Well, if you don't
I
agree
don't.
with it, of course it implies that, which I believe that. I believe that it's not vegan because it's not the original definition. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
fair.
the vegan society definition, but to me, that's not the good definition of veganism. So, I mean, I guess it's like it might be awkward when two vegans like have different opinions on something, but I think it's just gonna happen. Like, I don't agree with like veganism being about reducing suffering. So obviously, I'm gonna
Yeah.
judge people. Like, it's just you have judgments about things you don't agree with. You know, it's not necessarily like a personal thing. It can be a personal attack if you do it like in like the also the tone you use, and if you like you can say things in a way that's not very productive or whatever. But I don't know. I guess I don't
No,
know.
I mean, I'm talking to a friend of mine who I share similar views about the world in general, and we were talking specifically about utilitarianism and deontology. And I think everybody in this world, like including you, Lucy, I assume you are a threshold deontologist, which means that at some point you're no longer deontologist, but you still look at
But
utilitarianism.
yes, but the problem is that these like the situations we're talking about are not really helpful to the victims in general. Like people use this stuff to not go vegan. They use it like, well, you know, so since you would do this if like a billion people like blah 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 whatever, and this animal had to be used whatever. It's a way to escape being vegan. You know what I
No,
mean?
yeah, yeah,
So
yeah,
in that
yeah,
sense,
yeah.
like it doesn't really help. In like if you're a human rights activist and someone like is like, well, if this person had to be sex trafficked or trafficked, you know, whatever, uh, for the like, and that meant that so many people could live or something like that. What would you choose? It's like, why are you even doing this? You know what I mean? Like, I'm the advocate for like the anti-human trafficking. Why would you try to find a scenario? You know what I mean? Like, it can be tricky in
I,
that sense.
I totally know what you mean. I mean, I feel like I don't have a problem with criticizing somebody's views. I'm all for it. I criticize people's views all the time. Maybe I don't do it publicly too much, but I criticize people's views often behind their back. That was the implication that when I said not public, but no, I also do it public when there's something to criticize. But like, I feel like we should most definitely 100% criticize views and not people. That's it. Like,
I
I
mean,
wouldn't say
or
some.
like criticizing, like if you're talking about that person and they said that, and then you're talking about like it's not necessarily attacking them. It's just like I don't agree, and I think that's damaging because blah blah, blah of that view. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah, yeah.
sometimes,
I know
like
what you
I
mean.
feel like sometimes people take it personally when it's not like it's not actually said in a personal way, and sometimes the reverse, like it's actually done as an attack on the person, which is also I think that it's important the way we talk. Like I get that we're triggered. Sometimes it's hard, but obviously if you have a tone that's like really hard to digest for the other person, they are in fight or flight mode in their brain, and their brain chemistry is literally not letting them think critically and like in a way that's easy because they don't feel safe. So they literally can't do it, you know? And so it's not helpful for a productive conversation if the person is too triggered, kind of thing. I mean, you can't always avoid it, but trying to make it about, of course, the views, like you said, is always helpful for you as well because they're more likely to be open to what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah. No, I agree with you. Yeah, it's a fine line, right? That you need to strike when you give criticism at some point, right? Because
Yeah, yeah.
as you said, you don't want the person to become fight or flight. You still need them to listen. And I mean, the point of it is we talk, even amongst the vegan community, we talk with each other and we discuss all of this and we criticize each other's things, not to criticize, but to improve, right? That's the goal.
Yeah.
Because, like, from your video that you, when you looked at my video. I was gonna
Mhm.
say shared, showed, and
Yeah.
then yeah, it didn't work. None of the verbs worked. But like when you looked at my video and you added criticism to it, I thought it was extremely helpful. And
I'm glad.
while I agreed, no, yeah, I agreed with a lot of the points that you said. Maybe in certain points I didn't necessarily
Yeah.
agree. But I valued the feedback. I value feedback. It's important, right? And again, like the feedback you provided feedback on the method itself. You provided feedback on the things, not attack me afterwards and say, "Oh, this guy's not vegan. Look at him. What is he promoting or stuff?" So there's people who do that in the vegan community, and I think that's where Brandon from Logical Consistency, where his issue is standing, and that's also where kind of I disagree with. Like, let's not call people out,
Well, I guess
calling
it
them
would
not.
be more helpful maybe for the person to be less triggered, to be saying like, I don't think that's what veganism is, instead of saying they're not vegan. Maybe that could help better. I don't know. I guess I know it's semantics, but it can help people digest information and just be more open-minded. And you like also like, it's just, it's like, that's why I really don't want to do, honestly, for now at least, debates ever, because I think it's because of like, I know it's like kind of semantics, but not really, because a debate is set up so that like there's going to be a winner and a loser kind of thing. Like it's like debug your brain talked about this. Anyways, if you if
That's
you
true.
if you kind of make it more about like it's a conversation, or you use the Socratic method, things like that, it's more open minded. It's less triggered, so people are more intellectually honest, etc. So
That's
yeah.
true. That's true. That's true. I think I'm gonna, because this whole thing started from a question from the audience, and I wanted to take another question from the audience, but now I lost it, and I was looking back now at the
Sorry.
questions, and I saw Vegan Gaze. Hello, Vegan Gaze.
Hello.
Vegan Gaze is awesome. And I'm trying to find the question. I can't find the question now. But the question was, what was it? What was were the nerves warranted? Was it what was the worst experience from an outreach? Something like that for both of us.
I think it's like this one time, this guy, like, he was very weird. He started like video, like he was filming me, but like when people film you filming them, like they're very defensive. It was very weird, and he actually was talking to me in Hebrew or something. It was really weird, and I felt unsafe actually. Like it was really weird. And then he was just like shouting in my face and just telling, like he was attacking my appearance or something. It was, I think, the worst experience. Oh no!
No.
Sometime I was doing a with a free experience. Actually, that's probably the worst one. And I was actually in an area that I thought I could be at, but I couldn't apparently. And the person came, like the organizer. She had like cowboy boots and a cowboy hat, and she had like a thing with a skin or something. Like she had like whole cowboy like muzzle and outfit or something. And she was super mad, and she made us leave super fast, and she was like really mean. But that was my fault, but still, like, ugh, not a great experience.
Oh my God. Yeah. What do you do after experiences like this? Do you like take a break, or do you just continue, or do you like
It
just
depends.
say, fuck it,
Well,
I'm
it was
going
the
home.
end of the outreach anyway, so we didn't really care too much. But I was so embarrassed because like the poor people involved, like it was my fault, so it was like, ugh. But it was really like not that big a deal. But I think if you do too much activism in a certain amount of time, something happens like this, it's much harder to deal with than if you have like been healthy about the amount you do. So in that at that point, I was doing fine with the amount of activism. So
Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, it's never. I mean, I don't know. Like for me, I had a bad experience this Sunday. It was just like I don't know. Like, but for me, bad experience in activism doesn't necessarily mean that the people are dicks, because there's a lot of dicks also here, and it has happened to me that somebody got like super close to me, like intimidating me in my face, and
no,
was
same, yeah.
like, hey, dude, I'm gonna show you what veganism is like. But yeah, weird. But that wasn't, well, honestly, that bad for me, because I'm like, I'm filming it. Amsterdam is full of police everywhere. I'm like, I didn't even feel unsafe. I'm like, just stop it. And I didn't even flinch or anything. So that would
They try to
he
take
just
your
left.
camera or something crazy. It's freaking ugh.
Oh, my camera's tied. I tie it to a bench, so even
And
if they
it's
try to
for
take it,
okay, because I was wondering I was wondering how you felt safe about your camera because it's far from you,
yeah.
so you attach
No, I
it.
tie it. I tie it,
Yeah.
yeah. But I didn't start tying it because I was afraid of people stealing it. I tied it because of wind. The wind is very strong
Yeah.
here, so I lost 2 lenses so far because of it, because it knocked my camera bam on the
Oh no,
lens. So
that's so bad.
it's bad, yes. But my worst experience was this Sunday, and when I mean my worst experience was because not just that I couldn't focus on the conversation. I literally could not focus on the conversation. I don't know if you had that happen. There was a guy playing an accordion or something, but it was one of those old-timey accordions going like the Mozart piano like vibe and playing this really Dutch music, really intense. And this other person coming to me, and when we were talking, I asked them, do you think it's needed? I always ask, like, okay, well, do you think you need to consume animal products to survive? Or not even to survive. Do you think you need animal products? And a lot of them are like, no, of course not. Well, yes. And then, well, I explained to them that you don't. And this guy was like, yes, I do need them. And I'm like, no, I explained to you that you don't. You see, you can survive and thrive without them. And he's like, well, no, that's not what need is. Need is something else. What? What do you mean? There's survival and then there's need. Yeah, they're the same. No. There's different. I couldn't follow him. I'm like, at some point, I'm like, you just stop abusing animals. And just like, I don't want to talk to you. Just stop abusing animals. So yeah, that for me, a bad experience means just that I can't focus on what the person is saying.
I had a really bad experience actually. That's actually might be the worst. And when I think about it, I did really poorly because I was burning myself out. I was doing too much, and that I was really bad. That conversation, I never published it. The guy was like, it was like, the plants feel, like I'm a scientist, plants feel and stuff like this. And I didn't have the amazing type of like answer that I have to that sometimes when I remember during that conversation. And I was beating myself up for it. And it was like, like you literally compare, like, so what you're saying that plants feel pain to justify animal slavery or animal exploitation is the, like, you could use that for humans. You could use that to justify exploiting humans or using them as slaves. But I didn't say that, and I got super triggered because I was very, at that point, like when you're, I don't know if you, what you think about that, but like I feel like a lot of, especially new vegans or new activists, have a hard time compartmentalizing like the horrors of like just being hyper aware of the horrors of animal
Yeah.
exploitation. And at that point I was like very much in the depth of that, being like, I always think about it, blah blah blah, all this stuff. But now I feel like I'm very good at compartmentalizing, like being able to switch it off, kind of thing, like being like, okay, when I'm focusing on what I'm empowered to do, and yes, I'm focusing on the victims, but not to the degree that I am, like, I know how to switch it off, kind of thing, which is very dangerous, by the way, because that's how I became a vegetarian again. So it's very dangerous. Be careful. But if you use it as an activist so that you can actually function and actually do activism, it's very helpful. But you have to be careful to stay connected to the victims enough. And sometimes you have to snap yourself back and be like, oh, the reason why I'm not motivated is because I'm not actually connected enough to the victims. So it's very fine. It's very easy to become either too connected or not connected enough. So
It's very interesting. I actually don't have that problem because I haven't seen any footage. I've only seen the AV footage and a little bit like of the We the Free one, but I don't need to see it. I'm like, I never needed to see it. It's not, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to imply that it's somehow different. It's just for me, when I connected to the animals, I didn't connect necessarily based on what they were going through with the whole fucking horrors, and they are horrors, but rather with the idea of discrimination, because I myself have felt discriminated against in my life. And when I learned that, for me, when the click happened towards being veganism, I realized that, okay, well, it is discrimination. It is not fair towards them. So Yeah.
I'm very glad
Yeah.
that, because I feel like a lot of activists are motivated by the empathy of like their suffering, not necessarily only with the idea of that slavery, which is, I
Yeah.
mean, it makes sense. That would be enough. But I feel like it's also how we started, right? So it makes sense. But I'm glad for you. That's awesome.
Yeah, but it I, it doesn't like what that's actually a good question, right? Because I wasn't going to ask you this, but fuck it, let's just go with it. So what is it that motivates you to do activism? Is it the footage, or is it yeah, what
I
is it
feel
that
like
motivates?
I feel like it used to be the footage, the suffering. But because I've learned to kind of, I mean, honestly, I see so much footage these days that I'm kind of like completely used to it. It's kind of messed up. It's really messed up, actually. But I'm so used to it. Um, but I feel like now the thing that makes me angry without making me completely like distressed kind of thing, because when I watch footage now, I don't really feel anything because I've trained myself to calm down. Otherwise, I'm just always freaking out. So, so it's not gonna help. But like, it's the anger of human supremacy. Like just the like when you zoom out of the world and you just see how humans are freaking disgusting. Honestly, like in terms of how
Yeah.
we treat other species, like this slavery aspect, like the fact that we are using them as objects, and this kind of more mental, like conceptual way of looking at it really motivates me in a way that is not super hard to focus and work. It makes me angry because it's like it's just unjust. Obviously, it's like you're mad when there's racism happening, kind of thing, and that motivates you to. And it's like the same thing.
Yeah, it is. It is. It is indeed.
I'm sorry, I need to go to the bathroom real quick. I'm so sorry.
Unacceptable. You got to stay here. No bathroom breaks.
You're
No, go
vegan,
on.
so
Continue.
maybe. Never mind.
No,
I'll be quick. I'm sorry.
no, I'll go soon also. So it's fine. I'll look at the chat meanwhile. Uh, let's see what everybody has been saying here. I hope you're enjoying the chat, everybody, so far. Yeah, weak vegan bladder. I've had the weak vegan bladder ever since I was, even before being vegan, apparently, right? But of course, my bladder is vegan because my bladder does not discriminate against other species or other individuals based on, a stupid, ridiculous thing such as species. Yeah, so in that sense, all my organs are actually vegan. Didn't you use the bathroom last week, though? Yeah, I did. Funny. I have the same IQ as a bivalve. Those who know, they know. Hey, nothing wrong with having the same IQ as a bivalve. You deserve to live, you deserve to be happy, and you deserve to be loved. My weak vegan bladder acts up a lot when I have alcohol. Crap, that stuff from beer, not vegan. Yeah. Veganism is impossible because of crop death, though. Yeah, it's impossible. It's impossible to it's impossible to not infringe on animals' rights, right? It's true. It's impossible. What can you do? Hurry back, Lucy. I don't think she can hear you. I don't think she can hear us. I don't want to do this thing. Lucy is a legend. She is, yeah. And I'm enjoying the talk with her a lot. It's nice. I have actually so many questions written down, and apparently I didn't even need to write them down. There she is.
Thank you for this.
So you got Lucy is a legend.
Thank you. It's very kind.
And hurry back, Lucy.
And I just wanted to say something real quick before I'll let you talk as well.
Yeah, go.
I just wanted to say that for me personally, it helps me. It helps me to have like hours of the day or the week, because I actually have I'm lucky because I don't have to work another job, so I can actually plan my day every day, whatever. But even if you work a job like every week, having a set amount of hours or a set, like a time where you do it, it can be good to contain your activism there, so that you don't always think about the horrible things that are happening. But it's like it's also, it helps you being productive. I don't know. It can be good to separate activism from the time you spend in your personal life.
No, I totally agree with you. Yeah. And I want to know more. Why is it? Because I also don't have a job, by the way. So but the way I do it, it's exactly what you say. Is at the beginning of the week, I look at the forecast, and if there's, most of the times in Amsterdam, the problem is the rain. Although I have a question about that also. If you think I have an approach also about rain, and I'm curious what you think about it. But if it's raining, it's going to be hard to do activism. Obviously, the camera is not waterproof. It's people are not on the street or whatever, and so I look at the street on the days that are nice, and I plan around them basically. And I plan my gym. I plan my whole life. I plan around the days that are nice, so that I can do activism in those days. And the days that I do activism, I plan to not do a lot, as you mentioned, just because it takes it out of you, right? Like after doing 3 hours of activism afterwards, I feel like always I'm like,
And then you're not as good, as you're not as focused. You get triggered. Like,
yeah. I feel like I just need to sit down on the couch and shut up. It's a weird thing after doing 3 hours of activism. So yeah, but tell me, why is it that you don't have? Oh, and not why, or how come you don't have a job? How is it that? If you want to talk about this, by the way, feel free. If you don't.
Well, I'm an immigrant, so anyways, I can't, like, even if I wanted to, I don't. But even if I wanted to, I'm in the U.S., but I'm French, so I don't have my green card yet, and I'm not allowed to work. My husband does the working, and hopefully in the future I can monetize my channel when I have my green card, because that would help. Because damn, it's expensive here, but yeah, that's why.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah. Okay. Oh, interesting. Oh,
You were gonna ask me about the rain. There's something about
the
that.
rain. Yeah. So I'm like, I don't know how it is with you, but I feel like the activism, the conversations themselves, they kind of flow nowadays for me, at least like with the social experiments. And I have 3 of them written down. I understand the consent one is the one that you critiqued, and I'll explain also kind of what I did before that. But I modified one that is not about consent and kind of works really well. It's very similar to that one. So in that sense, like the conversations usually kind of flow pretty well. I still practice at home. Sometimes I just speak to myself about questions, and I literally speak them out loud, and then I try to repeat them to memorize them to get better at it, especially items where I know I'm not that good at. Sounds ridiculous. I know, but that's kind of what I do.
No, that's a great idea. I should do that.
But the one thing that I still need is to get people to come faster to me, to get more, because if I sit for 3 hours, I'll get maybe 2 conversations per hour, 3 maybe, depends on if they're good. So 3 is the maximum. I don't think I ever had, maybe I had 4 at one point, but usually average is 2 per hour. Yeah.
How long are they?
15, 20 minutes.
That's amazing. That's not bad at all.
No, that's pretty good. Yeah, but it's such a lot. It's a lot of people here. Again, like compared to US or where you sit, I'm sure like I get, like, I think in 10 minutes I get the amount of people that you get probably in 1 hour, right? It's
There's a lot of people coming and going usually.
Oh, okay. Now, like, I don't know, like in front of me, there's so many people passing by, and the whole problem is trying to get them to speak to me. And if I start speaking to them, I feel like there's always going to be a good enough conversation regardless. So
how do you get them? Like, how does this work? Do you ask them to come?
I just hold a sign that says the sign, with the social experiment.
Do that. If I do that, I can't. It doesn't work for me. I always ask, because there's so many times, like, the people just need a kind of like a permission or something to come, because it's awkward. And sometimes they come without me. Like, usually the best conversations are when they come themselves, I feel like. But I've had so many conversations where they were like about to leave, and I asked, and they're just like, all right, I think that helps.
Yeah.
Like, do you want to answer a couple of questions, kind of thing?
Yeah, I also, like, as people pass by, if somebody looks at me, I'm like, hey, do you want to play the game? Oh, it's fun. Let's do it. And then when they come like, or I drop it on them. But yeah, and I thought about, speaking of rain, I thought about a good way of keeping, especially tourists, and because in Amsterdam there's a lot of tourists, and keeping them want to come have a conversation with me is go in one of these days where it sometimes rains, sometimes it's sunny, and just have a big umbrella and a sign that says, sit under my umbrella and have a conversation with me, or something like that, and to just get people to come, freaking signs, to just get people to come speak to me so that they can sit under umbrella while it's raining. I was thinking it's
You
a
have to
silly
answer
idea.
my questions or you're wet. So
Exactly. What would you rather do, be wet or answer my questions? Yeah, but the minute people hear about veganism, everybody's like,
that's why it's my very last question.
yeah, makes sense. Also, somehow people they're so afraid of discussing it. Or afraid of changing, or no, I don't want to change. Don't talk to me about it because then I may change. It's weird. Okay, I'm gonna ask you, because I have a couple more questions still. What do you publish all your conversations? What is a conversation? When is a conversation good or bad or not worthy for publishing for you?
I used to publish all of them, but not anymore. I try to publish the best ones, and it's difficult to know, like to say, like I feel like a bad one is when the people didn't elaborate much and was like a little lame because of that, because it wasn't very juicy, like it wasn't, I don't know, something like that, or when someone really went way, like straight away too far other directions. But I think the reason why I don't post videos sometimes is because I don't feel good about my performance. I don't feel like I pushed them enough, or I was too triggered and I just did a bad job overall, and so that's when I don't publish them. Yep.
It's a
Because I
good.
used to just put it on the screen, but if you do that too much, it's not good for the video. Like the editing is just not watchable. So, yeah. What about you?
No, same. I also don't publish all of them. I think now I even have a pretty large collection of videos, and I did. I think a couple of months ago, I did. Let's watch some of my unpublished videos live stream, and I explained why I didn't publish them and why I thought they were bad
That's a
and
good
stuff. So
idea.
yeah, you should do that. That's actually really nice,
Yeah.
because I feel like a lot of people, activists, they see these conversations and they're good conversations a lot of the times, and they're like, "Oh, my conversation was shit. I definitely couldn't do this." But the reality is, I mean, I don't know, 1 in 3 conversations is a really good one, or 1 in 5 maybe is a really good one, and 1 in 3 is a good one, and then sometimes there's a lot of shitty conversations, and for me the shitty conversation means I get distracted most of the times. They just distract me with
Yeah.
nonsense. That's the most common cause for me. So yeah, it's good for people to see that, we fail
I'm writing it
sometimes.
down because I don't want to forget that. Is
Oh,
it okay
nice,
with you
nice.
if I steal this idea for my life?
No, yeah, of course, steal it,
Okay.
steal like an artist.
I will. It's a very good, and you can learn yourself or whatever. Like it's very, very good.
Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like I feel like, um as a activist YouTuber, there's one that I want people to be vegan while watching, or to get them to thinking when watching the conversation, and two is to get the other vegans to start outreaching and to going out there. And the start outreaching part, I realized that it's kind of a tricky side, right? Because if you're doing too well, like let's say, Earthling Ed is absolutely amazing, right, in his conversation. So when he publishes a conversation, you don't like Earthling Ed?
Depends.
Okay,
I
well,
don't agree with a lot of stuff sometimes, so I don't really like him too much these days.
no,
Depends.
interesting. Okay, I'm curious about that. But Earthling Ed does have good conversations, right? Like, his conversations flow. Like, I feel like they're always flowing. He always has good points, even if they don't always end well. They always have good. It always seems like it was an intelligent conversation and both parties got something from it, right? And it's not always the case like that on the street, right? So I feel like if I was to publish bad conversations, then it would be bad for that other side of YouTube where you're like, I want other people to be vegan while they watch the conversations. And if I was to
Mhm.
publish only good conversations, then so it's a balance that you kind of
Like, because people will be like, I'm not good enough. Like, like I did
exactly.
definitely feel that when I watched like outreaches for sure. Yeah. Yeah, but in the life, like, I feel like non-vegans are not probably gonna watch that. So, I
Exactly.
mean, I feel like the reason why I do less videos now than I used to, and I actually focus on shorts way more, is because I've seen way more interaction from like non-vegans in the comments at least, and there's way more views, of course, on shorts because non-vegans are like like the short system in YouTube or yeah on YouTube is very random, and so they will actually see that. But the videos, like, yeah, maybe they will watch it because they think it's a social experiment, not about veganism. But most of the people that are watching, I feel like, are vegans, which is great also because we can learn from
Yeah.
each other's activism, things like that. But that's why I'd rather make shorts because of this. But I
It
still make
reaches more
videos, but not as many.
non-vegans.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good point. And actually, since we dived into this, like, because that is eventually the goal to reach as many non-vegans as possible with the vegan message. And you said one of your strategies is to get to make shorts. When you make shorts, mm, I've seen one of your latest shorts. Do you usually make shorts that are topical, or do you make shorts that are clips from a conversation? Like, which one
It's
would you say is
always
better?
I mean, I don't know which one is better. It's just for me, I don't want to do something from scratch. I usually take it from my podcast or from like my outreach visits. My favorite shorts are like outreach shorts. They're easier as well. They take less time because from even my podcast, I have to find all the visuals, and it's just like it's just more work, anyways. But I feel like people really like seeing conversations that have like especially conflict as well. So I think it's easier for me. I like it better, and I feel like it really helps for people watching.
Can I give you another tip? Because you said
Mhm.
you the visuals. Do you use ChatGPT?
No, I
Oh,
should.
yeah. So ChatGPT, unfortunately, to generate images, you have to have the paid version. It's not free. But
Okay.
hear me out. There's one cool thing that I just recently realized it can do, and that is, I made a short, and I took the transcript from the short and put it in ChatGPT and told him, generate me an image every 3 seconds based on this transcript. And it generated me a lot of cool images. Not all of them were good. A lot of them were like mediocre. But it simplifies your work, and it puts you, because that's the thing about ChatGPT. It's not the final solution. It's the catalyzer. It really speeds up your process. It really helps you. Oh, okay, I should generate an image that does that, and then I just open another ChatGPT and I generate an image exactly specifically to what I need. It really
I
does
just saw
help.
a shorts from you, like a short on Instagram from you. I don't know when it was from, but I was thinking, damn, his images are good.
Yeah,
So
ChatGPT.
yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I honestly, like, I encourage a lot of vegan people to use ChatGPT as much as they can, because it's a really good tool for us. It's not, ChatGPT is not vegan itself, but it's an incredible tool for generating images,
I
for
mean, say I
getting the
right. Yeah.
yeah. But I'm sorry, I didn't get what you said just now.
It's AI, right?
It's AI, yeah, it's AI, yeah. I think Mid Journey is the best now at generating images, but I I I have to join the beta, and to join the beta, you have to do it on Discord. I haven't looked into it too much. Like, ChatGPT is just, you open it, okay, you have to pay, but then it's easy. With Mid Journey, I think you have to do it in Discord.
I have a question for you.
Yeah, sure.
What's like the percentage of like outreach you do in your activism? What else do you do? Like, what is the types of activism you're focusing on?
So percentage, it's hard to say percentages, right? As
Yeah,
I
yeah,
said, like, for me, my week
roughly.
is, yeah, for me, my week is mostly like, let's say if I have a week that's just good days, so in the sense that um there's no days where I have to stay inside, then I'll have the 2 days where in the weekend where I do either both AV and with the free. The weekends are usually with the groups. And then I have 2 days for myself where I just work half a day. I work on some editing. I work on some looking into more tools and ways to just simplify my life in general in this whole process, because it's not like I do editing on those days necessarily, but I rather, oh, I have the smart object. I should make it better and like more interesting. It spices up things a bit. I know a lot of people probably don't even notice, but I like it, and I notice it myself. So that's what I do in those days, half a day, and that half a day I take to myself. And the other 3 days that are remaining, I would do activism every day, but like just depending, right? If I would aim for 2 or 3 hours, but if it's 1 hour, it's also good.
And what is it like? Is it like, I mean, you edit your outreach. You do a lot of live streams, I've noticed as well, and you do outreach as well. I mean, obviously, and yeah, so that's basically the types of activism you do, right?
Yeah, I do. So, which types of activism? Yeah. Okay, so there's AV with the free on by myself. Yeah, I also, I don't know, I comment on stuff. Not as much anymore, because commenting really, it really takes it out of me. Like I never. It takes a lot of energy. So I
To me,
have a
that's
lot of
the hardest form that I've
exactly.
tried.
It is the hardest form. So I have a lot of respect for other
Apart from
vegans who.
investigation and all this shit, we were talking about what we've done, of course.
Yeah, and it's insane, right? Because all of these people, when you comment, you're basically speaking to somebody who's like an annoyed child, and you have to give certain good arguments for an annoyed child. So sometimes you have to be a bit witty, sometimes you have to be a bit direct, and sometimes if you give too much information, they just won't listen, right? So it's such a hard thing. Comments is the hardest one. I do it sometimes, but not a lot. But I like activism, like the fur thing where you go and yell sometimes. That
Oh, the
depends.
protests and stuff.
Yeah, the protests and stuff. Yeah, that's about it. I don't, not a lot. And recently, with some friends, we started a group where we want to do artsy stuff. Like, we just want to, like last time. At first, we started with the TV to do like AV outreach, where we just hold the TV. But then nobody was looking at us. Everybody's like, "The fuck's happening there?" There's just some vegans. So then we had animal masks, and I put on an animal mask and I sat down on the ground as if I was dead. And certain other people sat next to the TV with the animal mask looking at me, and everybody was stopping by and looking like, "Whoa, what's happening there?" And then other activists were having conversations then with people. So in a sense, that's just it. You just need conversation starters. That's all you need.
I have a question that's random. I want to know if you do you use footage in outreach? It doesn't look like you do, but do you?
Footage
I
and
mean,
outreach,
for your
no.
own. Okay. Is there
No,
a
I
reason?
don't. Honestly, the reason why I don't use footage is because I didn't find a way to not break the conversation. And a lot of the times when I speak to people on the street, they're almost always being a bit in a hurry. They're always, especially when they realize they're
Definitely.
put on the spot and they're about veganism, like, oh, I gotta go. So I enjoy. Sorry, I try not to give them a reason. I try to keep them. Also, lately I realized that as I'm watching my videos back, that I need to shorten some of my explanations, because if they're too long, they lose interest and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know exactly what you said," and they respond to something else, or just go like, "Ah, what are you gonna do? I'm just
They'll
gonna
cut
eat
you
meat."
off, and you can't. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that sense, it's a tough thing, you gotta keep these people entertained. If you can juggle and they, oh yeah, juggling, and then they
You know,
listen, then
I stopped the footage because of this exact reason. But I realized, like, someone, told me, like, well, yeah, but it's very important, like, for them to connect to the victims. And if it's too conceptual and they don't see the victims and the suffering that's a result of the exploitation, because that's usually much more simple for people to connect to the suffering, whatever, they will probably not really feel the urgency or something like that. And I totally agree with that. But the thing that I'm going to try is, like, before, when I used to do the footage, that I would tell them what it is. But I'm gonna do like the with the free 3-minute challenges where I don't tell them. I just tell them it's gory just so that they consent to that. And I'm gonna say there's violence, but I'm not gonna say it's about like anything. And I'm just gonna show them a thing about like different what's going on with the animal victims, and then I will ask them, "What do you think veganism is?" So I'm gonna try that hopefully.
That's a
But
good
yeah,
one. That's
yeah, so that they don't
But how do
know.
you how will you get them to say, right? Because We the Free offers them prizes, right? You say, "Oh, I'll give you a little prize if you watch this video."
Maybe I should think about that. I don't know. I used to do that with like just telling them that's what it's about, and they would do it. Um, they can say no. I mean, but like they don't really get anything. But I feel like for some people, being filmed is a reward. People like attention in some sense. The people who stop. So I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to spend money like on stuff for all the outreach. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, I know what you mean. Yeah, I at some point, because of some awesome Patreons who donate to me. Thank you, awesome Patreons. I applaud you. I was like, "Oh, I'm finally making, I don't know, 10, 15 euros a month." And then I spent that on ChatGPT basically. So like, yay, it equals out. But like, I don't know. I'm like, for me, it's more like I'd rather have the best. Like, the way I approach this is a lot like how I approach veganism in general. I think, like, because I'd rather be on the right lane and go forward than constantly switching lanes. And you see what I mean? Like, I feel like veganism is kind of the same thing. I'd rather have the best idea about veganism that I know and then move forward with it and try to go. I don't know. In my head, it makes sense. I'm sorry. In my head, it makes sense.
I understand, like, because about what? About the footage? I'm not sure.
About the outreach itself, right? Not
Mhm.
necessarily the footage. Like, I feel, and I also have a lot of crap in my house, and I usually try to use a lot of crap. So in that sense, I have a screen that is 15 years old, I think, and sometimes I've been thinking lately that I want to, as you said, with another different type of activism, just put the screen around my neck and go in front of a
Mm.
butchery and then just sit there silently, do nothing, just sit there. I'm sure it will piss off the
So
butcher.
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know where I was going with that. I'm sorry.
No, like, I get it. Like, it's creative protest kind of thing.
Yeah. I saw that Sky is in the house.
Hello.
Sky. Yeah, so as you said, David Ciarenas kind of set you on the right track with veganism, or helped you. I mean, I feel like for me, Sky has been that. I
I really like
literally,
Sky.
I also really like his view and the way he explains everything. Maybe I don't agree with everything that he
Of
says.
course. When do you know?
Yeah, exactly. But like, I really value all the things that I learned from him. So yeah, in that sense, I'm grateful. Okay. Shall I go to my next question?
Sure.
What advice would you give to a beginner activist?
I can only speak really about like okay okay, let's say someone who has done nothing. I think, right. Okay, so I would advise them to go slow and like start with the forms of activism that they feel more comfortable with. For me personally, it was definitely like starting. I mean, for me personally, because if you're more of an introvert, maybe it wouldn't work. But starting a vegan potluck could be helpful because it builds community, or like starting community events, like planning them on meetup.com or whatever, on Facebook events, whatever, could be helpful. Or like stickering. Be careful because sometimes it's not legal. um, and don't get caught, whatever. Stick around. How you call it? Leafletting, giving like flyers to people in the street. That can be easier than outreach, for example, a little bit. I mean, it's still nerve-wracking in some sense, but things like that you feel comfortable with. Or like obviously making content that can be good. Like you learn editing. Everybody starts with crappy videos. That's okay. It's gonna happen. Then you get better
Yeah.
every time. That's okay. and or
100%.
making posts or making quotes, vegan quotes, like anything like that that's a little less nerve-wracking or less crazy at first, and then just trying stuff out, or starting with groups. That's very good. Like with a free AV, stuff like this that can help. That's what I would say. And just remember that we all start crappy. We all start really bad at outreach often. Some people really, like good at first, but most of us are really not, and that's okay. You're gonna just get better. You just have to start and do stuff, and it's gonna be sometimes embarrassing, whatever. Sometimes you're gonna feel like you really want to stop, but that's okay. We all feel this way. Just continue.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
also experiment with the amount of activism you do, because sometimes, like often I feel like activists go all in and too long. They don't put limits on the amount of time they spend on activism, and they don't really feel their needs, and then they burn out and they don't do it anymore. So be very careful about that, especially if you have a
That's a very
job.
good. Yeah, I mean, one of my things is also to ask you about burnout, about activism burnout, and but I mean, we'll tackle that when we get there, I guess. But
What
those are
would you
some really
say to
good
someone?
advices. Say that again.
What would you say to someone who's starting?
I mean, I think pretty much what you said is very good. I would say my I would only add to all of this that don't stress about it too much. I think any action is action. Any action that you do is action. Sure, there will always be more and better action to do, but don't stress about it too much about being the best or making the best from the start. Just go out there, speak to people, spread a bit of the message, and you know you'll get better at it. You'll realize, oh, I didn't say it correctly this time, and you say it better next time. And in time, you do get better, right? I think like
Hmm.
it's one of those things that a lot of people I've noticed tend to overthink and be like, I'm afraid to do it, and I overthink, and I learned so much, and then you overthink and you don't go because you overthink. So I just
And
try to
you
say,
get scared, and it's okay that you're scared. Like we're all super scared before
we're
outreach.
all
Like it's
scared.
horrible, but you got to do it
Yeah,
anyways. And also
yeah,
educate yourself about what veganism is. Just like, start like reading some books, or maybe watch some stuff about whatever, like watch live streams, whatever, like watch videos of other activists. Like it can really help your confidence and obviously help you get better.
yeah, yeah. But even with all that, right? It's after all, I think the number one fear in the world is public speaking, right? So in a sense, then if you want to do it and speak also in front of a camera, especially, it's gonna be especially nerve-wracking to everybody. But I'm
Yeah.
like, fuck it, just do it. The first time I did it in front of a camera, I did it with AV, and somebody was filming me, and I was nervous as shit. Like I was praying that
Yeah.
I wouldn't go to somebody to speak about it. But then I went and I spoke, and whatever, you get in the moment. And I think that's also another thing, which another advice that I would give also to myself and to a lot of other people. I give to myself every time I go out to do outreach, and I would tell everybody who does also, is to, when you go there, when you start the conversation, nothing around you matters anymore. So tie up your camera, put everything in your bag, put your phone to silent mode. Doesn't even matter. When you're there on
Yes.
the
Just solely
conversation,
focus on them. Absolutely.
totally focus on them. It really helps. It really helps you, because you're like, you hear their arguments better, you can respond to arguments better, and you don't go into your head so much. Like, at least for me, the minute I disconnect is the minute I get into my head, and it's the minute I make mistakes. It's easy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just be laser focused. And also, I wanted to say, like, something that really helps me get over my fear sometimes, or like my lack of motivation sometimes, is like, it's not for me. I'm not doing it for me. So even if I make mistakes, I still have to do like what I can to get better, because it's not for me. It's for them. I'm not
Yeah.
doing like it's. I feel like it would be harder. Like I don't think I would actually put the amount of work, like, and get over my fears and all of this, for making, for example, something that's entertainment, like just making whatever, like some movie that's artistic, but because it's for victims, like these actual slaves and stuff. um it's really motivating. It's not for you, so even if you're scared, it's not for you. Like it's so much more motivating. I feel like it's just, I don't know, it makes you more strong because you know that it's for them and they need you.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah.
know.
I completely agree. Yeah, that does help out a lot, knowing that it's you're doing it for somebody else kind of pushes you a bit further. I feel like that's a bit of a push that you sometimes need to say, it's okay, I'm gonna go. Doesn't matter what I do. And it doesn't matter, even if you film it, you don't have to publish it, right?
Exactly.
Even if
Yeah,
you go and
that
speak to
helps.
somebody, what's going to happen if you go and speak to somebody? What worst case scenario? That person won't turn vegan. That person probably wasn't vegan already. You can't
Worst
turn
case
somebody
scenario, you
less
learn
vegan.
from it.
Exactly. You can't,
Hopefully.
like, somebody can't go less vegan, right? And if you start with a message where animals are sentient individuals that deserve moral consideration, if you go from this message onwards, I don't think there's anything you can go wrong with it,
And
right?
you're going to fail anyways. Like, just know you're going to fail, and you're gonna have embarrassing moments where you wish you don't exist, stuff like this, whatever. It's part of the process. Doesn't
It
make you
is.
a bad activist.
Exactly. Yeah. And sometimes fail publicly. Fuck it. Fail publicly.
It's
People
gonna
fail
happen
publicly.
anyways, whether you want it
Yeah.
or not.
Yeah. Just get used to failing. Failing is, I remember, like, I was speaking to one of my best friends, and she told me, I was discussing with her that, um, well, there was a not cute girl in the bar, and I was like, oh, I'm so afraid. What should I say? Go and talk to her, or whatever. And I was very afraid of rejection, and rejection is a form of failing. It's very similar to the fear of failing in that sense. But I remember her telling me, listen, the rejection is one of those things in life that's not even all that bad. It's just like you're afraid of it, but once you get through it, it just gets easier and easier. So I didn't go speak to that girl. No, I did not do that. But
But you do speak to people about veganism, and that's what matters.
And now, thanks to doing this and thanks to putting myself out there and speaking to animals, I'm like, I have no trouble speaking to girls anymore. Like, now I would go to
Well, it makes
everybody.
you way more confident, that's for sure.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
like sometimes when before I go I do outreach, I speak to my husband about how like nervous I am. I'm like, okay, I might die, but at least I tried, because it feels like you're gonna die sometimes, like the anxiety. Ugh. But like worst case scenario, someone pushes you or like is really rude to you, and big deal, whatever. You move on.
Pushes you? Somebody
It's
pushed
happened,
you?
not to me, but there's activists sometimes it gets physical or something. That's rare. Just know it's rare, but they can be very rude to you, whatever. Just do your best, whatever.
Yeah, and yeah, I just like, I feel like, again, if you stay focused, I feel like a lot of the times it's not that you're not going to make mistakes, you're still going to make mistakes, but I feel like if you stay focused on that cause, you're not going to cause so much friction between you and people, right? Because the friction usually comes when you call out people, not when you call out actions or when you describe the actions. I feel like, I don't know, maybe that's,
I
I
don't
don't know
agree,
what.
because I've had plenty of people. Like, I understand what you mean. It reduces the chance for sure to focus on the action, but also I feel like it's important sometimes to put but you are causing that kind of thing. But
Yeah,
but I
totally.
understand what you mean for sure. But I've had plenty of instances where I was very calm, like my tone was very even, and because of I was just being honest, or like even knowing that you're vegan, sometimes just like they get so triggered. So, and it's not necessarily a bad thing when people are triggered, because it means like there's research actually on that. Sociology is finding that the people that are very triggered by vegans are usually the people who are the most their values are the most similar to vegan. Sorry, so can be a good thing. You didn't necessarily do something wrong, of course, obviously, if they're triggered.
It's my turn to go to the bathroom. I'll be
Okay.
back. But then we're gonna dive a bit deeper into activism. I have a couple of questions for you, so I'll be back. I don't know. You can, if you want, you can chat with the audience or whatever.
All right.
I'll be right back.
If you guys have any questions or something you'd like me to read, let me know in the chat. Well, Sip is in the bathroom. It's kind of hard to sip through. Seeps. Well, never mind. Through the chat. It's a lot. That was fast.
Yeah, I'm a fast peer. um, yeah, and I also took off my shirt because it was actually pretty hot in the house. So I don't know if you were already chatting or something.
No, I was trying to seep through, but like so much that I didn't. I didn't really see anything I wanted to respond to.
Uh, yeah, okay. So I mean, I have seen. Hey, David. By the way, like, do you think that people who support lab-grown flesh could say that they're not utilitarians? Ah, yes.
No.
Okay, I didn't want to get into lab-grown, but we can get
No.
into
Well,
lab-grown.
I think it's a utilitarian thing. You're still using animals, like the animals whose cells were used and stuff. Like they're still experimenting on them, etc. And also, it doesn't help that like it reinforces the idea that animals are resources and it's okay to eat corpses, kind of thing. Like it's still, and I don't know. Like I feel like also, even if you're utilitarian in that sense and you think it would be a good thing, I understand it. But I feel like we underestimate like the ick factor of it being a lab, because people like that don't want to go vegan, they don't even want to touch freaking like uh, uh how you call it, like vegan meats and stuff, because they think it's too processed when it's not at all. So if they're icked about this, how they're gonna, you know what I mean? Like the people that would eat lab grown meat would go vegan if they've really freaking got it, you know? So I don't think, I'm not for it either.
So your concern, I want to, because I've seen some conversations about lab-grown meat, and I want to clarify also some things, because I don't know if I'm against that, but I'll explain my position, right? So first of all, lab-grown meat is at its current form, it's a piece of shit. It's totally not vegan, right? At its current form. However, the lab-grown meat that I have understood that they're working on no longer uses feline bovine, feral bovine syndrome, FBS, whatever, that thing that they take from baby cows, from they won't be using animals anymore, right? So in that sense, let's say if lab-grown meat does no longer use animals, would you have something against it?
It's still flesh that was sourced from an animal in the beginning. They had to take these cells to develop this new lab meat. So no, I don't agree with it.
Okay, but let's say if they don't have to take any cells from it, let's just say they only took cells once, and afterwards all of the cells are just multiplied using well, not multiplied, but they're like, you know how the, for example, COVID virus, the RNA was sent by the Chinese government to the, well, not government, but like Chinese scientists to the US scientists and such to test the vaccine on it and whatever. Like nowadays we can, let's say if we can find a way that we can replicate these cells without using absolutely any animals, and it's still lab grown meat, would you be okay with it?
I think that's the same thing as what we just talked about. You know, I think it's just like originally it comes from the corpse of someone. What? Let's put humans instead of the animals there. You know, would you support that if it was, you know, like cannibals doing that and being like, well, let's grow human flesh? No, you would advocate for them to just no, just stop. Like, why do you need to eat someone's corpse? Like, it's still wrong. It's still, you're still using someone's body as a commodity to make this happen. It's always going to be the source. And also it still, you know, normalizes this idea that someone's flesh is something that is okay for you to use and whatever, still food. So it doesn't help also with, for example, the hunters. It would still normalize for like other areas of animal. I mean, it doesn't help other forms of animal exploitation because of this mentality, you know, that because the mentality of animals as resources is the reason why we're having these problems, right? And so if we
Completely
don't deal
agree,
with the root, which is Like it would still be lab grown meat would be a branch of this mentality. It would still be a problem. Like we didn't deal
Yeah.
with the actual cause. If people still want
So
to do that.
I agree with you. However, I failed to see what the difference between. First of all, I'll call it not lab-grown meat because I think it's a title that's no longer being used now. It's used cultured meat, right? So let's say I failed to see the difference between cultured meat and plant-based meat if none of them are using animals and both of them are replicating meat, right? Why is it that cultured meat would be advocating for animal use? It's not using animals, let's say, in a case when it's not, and plant-based meat wouldn't be advocating for using animals. You see that this is where my problem stands with this argument of lab-grown meat.
The problem is that the plant-based meats were never sourced from animals. It's not from flesh. It's from complete plant sources. But lab-grown meat was sourced originally and was using animals, and they needed that to make the end happen. You know what I mean? So if it was never sourced, it would be vegan. Obviously, if it's just replicating, it's completely different.
But in that sense, I think Impossible was also using animals to test.
Yeah, that's not vegan.
Yeah, so Impossible is not vegan, right?
Mm-hmm. No.
Okay, then I agree with you. Okay, then we're consistent on this. Because I also don't want I don't want animals to be used in the process, right? I just fail to see. I don't like it when people say that, for example, Impossible meat is okay, but somehow lab-grown meat is not okay, right?
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Mm-hmm.
And the reason why I want to be clear about this, because as I don't know, and one of my questions was in your outreach, what is the biggest fallacy that's the worst for veganism? And if you ask me, one of the worst fallacies for veganism is the appeal to nature fallacy. It's one of the if it's not the worst, it's definitely amongst the top 3 fallacies, right? And I don't want us as vegans to commit the appeal to nature fallacy for lab-grown meat, right? So that's my only concern. If it's about using and abusing animals, I agree, we shouldn't be doing this, right? But if it's about,
it's not natural for sure. That's not a problem.
Okay, because I really don't want it to be about nature. I'm
of course.
So in that sense, I think we're kind of on the same page about it. Yeah, and otherwise, yeah, I think Sky also mentioned it in one of his streams, and I agree with him. It's just another type of meat. Otherwise, it's just another type of, the fact that it's initially was tested on animals and made using animals initially, it fucking sucks. It's worst. It's the worst thing and shouldn't have been done, and it shouldn't be doing this. But like if it reaches a point, let's say, where it's no longer using absolutely any animals in the process, then.
But you see that it's still flesh. It's still a corpse. It's multiplied.
It's just as much. It's just as much flesh as plant-based meat would be, right? So if
what? How? It's not from an animal.
It's not, but none of them would be, right? That's what I mean. Like none of them would be from an animal.
The plants were like the plant-based meats were never sourced from animals. That's the difference to me, because this was sourced. And it's literally, this is flesh, Whereas a plant-based meat, it's like mushrooms or whatever, It's completely separate from other animals.
Yeah, no. As it is now, you're right.
No, but even in the future, if they source it from an animal, which they do with because if you're not sourcing it from an animal, then it's not lab-grown meat kind of thing. It's a plant-based meat. You know what I mean? Well, so it would always be wrong in that sense, Because would you do that with a human?
No, I agree with you. I see what you mean. Yeah. Okay. So in that sense, it wouldn't be called lab-grown meat anymore. But
yeah, flesh, not meat. Someone said. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
What if it's synthesized meat?
But then it's plant-based. If it's not from an animal, not sourced from an animal, then it's not actual flesh. So it's fine.
Yeah, but okay. Okay. I guess my only point is that it's plant-based is one option, but there's not just plant-based, right? I mean, at some point there is possibility of replicating and creating without. I'm thinking that there will be possibility of replicating.
Artificial,
artificially synthesizing.
Yes.
Yeah,
I don't mean plant-based. I mean vegan in that sense. Yes, it wouldn't be from plants, but it would be vegan because it wouldn't be from an animal. Definitely.
So in that sense, if lab-grown meat the fact that it's tested now, like because I want to test this hypothesis also, because I honestly I don't have a, I'm learning about it more and more, right? So in that sense, synthesizing meat, if we get, let's say in 10 years, that the cells are cultured in a petri dish, nothing is taken from an animal's, it's just synthesized in a petri dish, and then from that petri dish it's put into a thing that multiplies it, again, nothing using animals, and all of it is
Were they
eventually,
never, or is it from the cells that they used from animals?
let's say it's from the cells that they used years ago from one animal
Yeah,
that
I
animal
stand
doesn't
by
even
my
exist.
answer.
Okay, so if the DNA matches the animal, it matters. You say it's not vegan,
If
but
it's from an animal at some point, yes, it's flesh. It's won't still use, like, it still normalizes it. It's still from the animal. You still exploited that animal's body for that, And there's no need also. Like, come on,
I'm sorry to interrupt you there, but Sky,
No worries, that was not. What
plant-based
is
meat is also probably
yeah, sometimes, yeah, for sure.
is also, but since it doesn't use or test an animal, it gets a pass. But we all know it gets a little iffy. I completely agree with it. Yeah. So I think that was my only point with lab-grown meat, as the same as my only concern was, I don't know if lab-grown meat necessarily, let's say in the future because in the future that I described just now, let's say even if it uses the one original cell design that was taken from one animal at some point, right? It's theoretically not using any animals whatsoever, right? So in the future, my issue is this was, why would it be that lab-grown meat would be somehow perpetuating the idea that we're using an animal and the plant-based meat wouldn't? So that was,
I don't understand why it's the same to you, because it's not from an animal or it's from an animal. So I don't understand.
so for me, the way I see it, right? I'll take it backwards. It's meat, because it's about the meat, right? Meat is just like, if you were to describe it in a sense, it's a certain texture and, let's say, a certain taste, right? That's kind of what meat is, right? And I don't think nutritionally speaking, maybe also higher in protein or something, right? Nutritionally speaking. So that's kind of how you would define meat, whether that's coming from plants or in a lab, that's something else, right? But like, if we were to make this meat 3D printed, then would that perpetuate the use of animals?
If it's flesh from an animal, yes.
But let's
If
say
it's cells from the
if
flesh
it's
of an
not,
animal,
if it's
but
not,
then no.
then
Why
no.
would it?
Okay. So
It's not
then,
about the texture. It's about
yeah,
whether it's from an animal or not, right?
okay,
But you
but
have
if
to make
at
it
one,
clear for people, for sure.
yeah, but like, if at one point lab-grown meat reaches a place where nobody says that it's from an animal anymore, it's just it's synthesized in a lab, hence the name lab-grown meat, right? Nobody, if
It's
you
from an
ask
animal would be why.
yeah, because we know that it's from an animal, right? But let's say it reaches a point, as I said, where it's no longer from an animal, where it's just merely using the studies that have been done on an animal, and it reaches a point where it's using, let's say, information that was taken from an animal, but the animal itself no longer exists, and it's no longer abusing or using any more animals, right?
To me, it's kind of like hold on. Oh, I had an example, I lost it. I just don't understand. I feel like it's clear to me. I just don't understand why it's still using, like, for example, if you're saying, I remember my example, if you're saying to someone, this is a vegan burger, for example, and it's not,
Yeah.
still not vegan, but the person doesn't know, but it's still not vegan. You used an animal, you know what I mean?
Okay.
They would
Okay.
like, this is not, to me this.
Okay. But if it, let's define what a vegan burger is, just to get. By the way, all of these are edge cases scenarios, right? Like, I think, like, with lab-grown meat is one of those things where we'll get into the edge case, right? So I don't have a problem with stating that lab-grown meat is not vegan, because it's not right now. It isn't. It totally isn't, right? I have a problem with the statement that lab-grown meat will perpetuate the usage of animals. And the reason I have a problem with that is because, as far as I have read, lab grown meat, when it will reach production for people, it will not be using any animals, because the whole point about it was to not use animals. So yes, in the development of lab grown meat, it has used animals, and that's already a bad point, right? But like when it reaches production, it will not be using animals at all. So that means that when a person will buy a lab grown meat from a supermarket, no animals will have been used for
I
that except
understand,
for
but
the
I stand by
development.
what I said because people will see the flesh because it's flesh from an animal, right? In from a cell of an animal, so
It's
it's
not.
from an animal. But it
Well,
was in the beginning.
yeah, but this is where I have a problem with, right? Like this statement that you just mentioned, because it's it's not that people will see it and they'll say it's flesh from an animal, because people, when they see plant-based meat, they don't say it's flesh from an animal, right? Because,
Because it's not.
but also this one wouldn't be.
But it is. If they don't know that it is, then maybe it wouldn't have this impact, but would still not be vegan, and it doesn't help that it's still like because if people like see this like flesh develop, it's still gonna be like there's still gonna be these people on the side like I want to have the natural flesh from hunting, and it would still be like it wouldn't be it's not vegan, so it's not going to help people take the stance against animal use because we used an animal, right? And we want people to do that because this is the root of all the exploitation. It doesn't help. Like I think we should just focus on our efforts on making people understand that if you wouldn't do this to a human, the same reason for an animal, you wouldn't advocate for humane lab grown meat. You would just advocate for people to understand how it's wrong to use humans as objects and as food, for example. Because this will change the world. It will change the paradigm. It's not going to deal
Um,
with the root thing. I mean, I don't think we're going to agree on this. We're spending a long time on this. I just feel like we're repeating each other, like ourselves.
yeah. Okay, yeah. No, you're right. I don't feel like. So, first of all, because Sky mentioned something here. So the question is whether vegans should waste time promoting lab flesh. No, don't
Sure.
fucking waste time promoting
Exactly.
lab flesh. No, but I don't promote lab flesh. I don't promote, just like I don't promote plant-based uh, flesh. It's the same, right? For me, if somebody if somebody wants necessarily to eat meat, I tell them to eat meat that doesn't come from an animal, right? That's all I tell them,
Yeah.
right? Because that's what, like, if they really want to eat meat that doesn't come from an animal. It's I know it's
Yeah, okay. It's just I feel like it's kind of confusing. I feel like if we're saying flesh, we should say flesh, for example, like an animal body, or like make sure that because it's very different. Like we don't really care about the replication of taste. It's just about But I feel like people could be a bit confused by. But no, I get what you mean. I get what you mean. Yeah.
yeah, that's all. I don't know enough about lab grown meat personally to say whether. I know that right now, as far as I read, it still uses animals, so I'm against it as it is now. But were it to not use any animals whatsoever in a scientific, I will read it then and tackle and cross that bridge when it gets to it, I think. And in that sense, I think, like, in the vegan community, there's people who take a firm stance and say, well, if it doesn't use animals, then it's okay. And people who say, well, it still perpetuates, right? So I'm somewhere in the middle because we haven't gotten to that place yet. So I can't form an opinion until I see that
It's like
place yet, and then we can talk from that place going forward, right?
But to me, like when you say it doesn't use animals anymore, I don't agree because, like, for example, if you kill someone for their flesh, right, and you wait 100 years, it was a long time ago that they were killed, but you're still using their body, and these cells were from their body, you know.
Yeah.
So to me, it's like that. You're still using their flesh, even if they've been long
Yeah.
gone.
No, it's true. It's true. So in that sense, it's very similar to the whole wearing used leather
Yes,
scenario.
like yeah, and the feather stuff. Yeah, exactly. I think so.
Yeah. And in that sense, it's very similar to that. Yes. However, the major difference with this one would be, and no, actually, fuck it. No, I don't want to go because then we get into the deeper thing.
Okay.
Because I think, like, the it can become a whole thing, and that's not what I wanted to talk to you about anyway. Like, I feel like we can
Fair
agree to
enough.
disagree on it. Yeah, right. I mean, I think we both agree on the fact that if it's using an animal, it's wrong. we shouldn't promote it. We shouldn't be telling people about it, full stop, right?
Yep. That's the most important thing, I guess.
That's the most important thing, I believe, right? And I explained also my only concern is that we don't fall into an appeal to nature, because I really, really hate the appeal to nature fallacy, and I have seen vegans commit it. Like it breaks the whole. I think it breaks the whole vegan movement when we get to that.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah. So, I don't even know who suggested lab-grown meat. That somebody in the comments suggested it. I need to.
I think it was Sky, wasn't it?
Damn you, Sky.
No, that was interesting. I thought it was a very good conversation.
It was a good conversation, yes. Yeah,
no, it wasn't Sky. Sorry, Sky.
It was a good conversation indeed, and like, I think that this conversation is
David.
a bit.
It was David, apparently. Sorry.
Oh, it was David. Yes. I think this conversation about lab-grown meat is one that it's a bit premeditated in a sense. I don't know. It's not premeditated. It's too early to have this conversation, if you ask me. So right now, as it is now, yeah, don't promote it. Don't. It's using animals. If it's using animals, not. When it will stop using animals, we got to have another conversation.
I don't agree. I think it's timely, but I don't think it's like I don't know. If we agree that we shouldn't promote it, I think we're good.
Yeah, I don't. By the way, I don't promote anything, right? I tell people to eat soy and soy-based products because they're fucking delicious, and I never liked meat anyway. So if you ask me, it's like, why would I tell somebody to eat meat? It's not necessarily better in that sense, right? So I don't think anybody. Also, this idea of promoting. Do you promote any particular thing that, in that sense, we shouldn't like? We should be promoting.
What do you mean, like plant-based meats? Is that what you mean?
Maybe plant-based meats. Yeah. Do you promote?
I just promote veganism. I just give pointers if they want to know how to. Well, like if they don't know that there's such a thing and that it's going to help them be on a plant-based diet or enjoy the plant-based diet, whatever. Yeah, sure, but I don't really do that too much. No.
Yeah, exactly. Me neither. It's the same, right? And I tell people, like, all I tell people is there's a bunch of vegan products. I don't even tell them what they are anymore. I call them mock meats. I tell them, listen, there's a bunch of vegan products out there, and just try to find the one that works for you if you have to. But you'll see that in time you won't even want those anymore. Basically, that's
it. Doesn't matter if they want them anyways. Like it's not about, like, we're not talking about that. We're not talking about, like, the tasting. Like I don't care if people take mock meats. I understand the concern that it would maybe make people remind them of, like, the actual flesh.
Yeah.
I understand that, but I feel like we have to be careful in, like, separating, like, if it's not used from an animal, it's none of our concern. You know what I mean? But I understand it. I don't know. I don't really talk about that anyway, so I don't really worry too much about that.
Yeah, me neither. But and that's actually my next question, like, because like with veganism, there's obviously the idea that the person that you're speaking to has to understand that animals are not for us to use, but rather they're individuals with their own free will. And my question is, let's say you meet somebody who, well, not say, like, do you think we should also touch upon practicability of veganism, in a sense that give people practical hints into not necessarily how to be vegan, but rather that would help them stay vegan? Or
I mean, I just feel like what we need to do really is, like, I mean, of course, when they have a question, or, like, they have an objection, for example, that's about health, or like it being too expensive to actually be plant-based, for example, or vegan, I would obviously tell them, like, how it's not true, and help them, like, understand that it's actually usually better for you, or, like, your money, whatever, because it's an actual objection they have. But apart from that, I just focus on the actual, like, thing. It's like it's slavery, whatever. Like, it's just not, they're not used to use yours to use. Sorry. And I think if they get it at some point, like, they just, like, to be vegan, you just need to get this thing that it's just not okay for you to not be vegan.
Yeah.
And once you know that, you just will do all the work you want. Like it's easy. You can just Google whatever. Anyways, but I don't really give them any practical thing apart from if it's an objection or they ask me. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know. Like this is one of those things that I've been talking to. I believe there's value in also offering practical reasons and having a minimal practicability thing to it, um, mixed with the morality or the ethical side of veganism. And the reason why I believe that it's important is because, let's say, I think, our brain, our mind is a messed up thing, and when something seems too hard to accomplish, sometimes we find reasons not to do that, right? So I'm thinking, could it be that, because, for example, what I noticed with the people that I talk to mostly on the street, it's a lot of the times it's a commitment issue more than anything, right? People committing to the idea that I will never ever have this product again, a product that at some point brought them joy, right? And it's not like they necessarily related that product to the animal, but like you teach them, you relate it to the animal. They understand that they shouldn't be buying this product because of what's happening to the animal. But then somehow their mind will try to escape this idea because of the practicability sense, right? So I don't know, that's kind of why I'm.
I understand it. I'm not saying like I'm against people doing that. It's just that I feel like from a time perspective, like because we have a certain amount of time,
It's true.
uh, I don't really. I think if you had an unlimited amount of time, of course, that's amazing. But since we have such a short amount of time to talk to them, like usually 30 minutes tops. Usually it's just 15, something like that. I think the most important thing to stress is like I can do it. It's actually way easier than you think. Maybe that could be helpful, but like really like nailing like the just the thing that it's slavery. This is horrible. Like you're part of something horrific, kind of thing. And I think when they get there, and like also I think something I often forget, but I need to remember is at the end, like I gave them a business card with my social media, and I want to remember to tell them, please contact me with any questions you might have about this. And that way they can feel like, oh, they're not completely alone in it. Um, because community is a huge part of why people don't want
Yeah,
to go
it's
vegan.
true.
So that can help. But yeah, that's why also I prefer not to
Yeah.
because of
So
the limit.
just to be clear, because I see veganism is not about not buying products, about rejecting the idea that animals are here for you. I completely agree, right? It's just that realistically speaking, some people don't even relate some products to animals. That's just all it is. Some people, some products, like even my mom, for instance, my mom, she didn't know about a lot of things that had gelatin in them, and that
Mm.
gelatin even comes from animals. So a lot of people may not even know about this kind of stuff. So when you tell them you shouldn't be buying this because, well, not that you should tell them that you shouldn't be buying them, you explain it to them, and then they piece up and understand that, oh no, this means I may not get this product that at some point brought me joy. It's their mind can turn against the message, right? So in that sense, that was sort of my question about it, whether
But I
whether
feel like, yeah, sorry.
yeah. No, go on, go on, go on.
I feel like if they understand the why, they will do the research themselves.
it's
They
it's
don't. They.
it's easy to think that because we're on the other side, right? Like I think like it's important to realize that we are on the other side. We have done the research. We reached here. We know it's easy. But when you're on the other side and part of a society that has been telling you, and you have been doing things in one way your whole life, and you meet one stranger on the street, and this stranger explains it to you that, oh, this is the shit that happens to you. Like I often try to put myself in that shoes, where something that I do that I enjoy doing is telling me that, well, fuck, this thing that you're doing is not good for certain individuals. Certain other individuals are dying because of you, or and I'm like, fuck, I want to stop. But then you see, like there's definitely some, um I'm not saying let's give practical advice. No, I'm not saying that. I'm just questioning um whether there is value into having a person be outreached twice, one logical and one practical, or whether there's, I don't know,
Would
I
they
feel
give you
there
the time to do that?
it's in an
Because
ideal world,
how would
yes.
you do that? Yeah, of course. In an ideal
Yeah,
world, of course, if you have all
yeah,
the time in the
yeah,
world, but it's because
yeah,
there's such a limit of time, and this is like really what will motivate them. If they don't have the intrinsic motivation, which is that, they will not do it, even if they know how to do it. So if they have the motivation, they will do anything. Like that's how vegans understand what's vegan or not. Is because they have this motivation to do the research, and I don't think we need to do that really. I think we just need to tell them like, look, I'm doing it. It's totally feasible. It's easy actually to me because you're used to it, and then just get it.
yeah. No, I completely understand. It's just I have had people, honestly, like I don't know if you had this happen, but I have had people understand the message but didn't want to change afterwards.
No, they
So
didn't get it.
yeah, they didn't get it, but it seemed like logically everything they were
Yeah,
saying and they understood
yeah.
it, right?
What I
So
mean
then
is more like the emotional, like, oh,
exactly.
horrible kind of thing.
Yeah, and then I'm wondering, right? Because with this, there's two sides to it, right? There's the logical side and the emotional side. And I'm wondering if the emotional side isn't for some reason also tied to the practical side of it. I don't know, to the idea that people attach emotion. I mean, like we gotta admit it, people attach emotions to food. That's true,
Mhm.
right? I do it too. It's we all do it. It's just that for us, at some point, we realize that not using animals is more important than whatever food
Exactly.
we have attached
So they have
emotion
to get
to,
that.
right? Yeah,
Yep.
they have to get that. It's true, but maybe not everybody will get that. Maybe
I mean,
because
not
I
everybody will be vegan for now. That's for sure. It will like
no,
for
but
sure. Yeah.
but I'm wondering if most of the people will just be stuck in this idea, will be stuck in understanding it, but not getting it. I don't know if you.
Maybe, but we know that, right? It's only like a seed in their head, but most people are selfish as hell. But there are some low hanging fruit, like that we can get vegan, and then the more vegans there are, right? There will be pressure to be vegan. That's what we want. Yeah, of course.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think we all want the same thing in that sense. I'm just, I guess, thinking out loud about it because I have been thinking about what is it that, because even about me, right? When I turned vegan, I understood the message before I turned vegan, and the minute I turned vegan was when it just made a click in my head, right? So all of us had the same
What was it?
issue. For me, it was just like I understood. I think I said it in a couple of. I'll say it again. I think a lot of people already know it, but I'll tell you also. But like for me, it was mostly I was I was vegetarian. I thought it was okay with animals, and then I was consuming dairy and eggs, and then um, some people. I was watching vegan debates and vegan stuff online because there's just interesting content, and I was into philosophy, and my train of thought in my head was that, yeah, okay, that's one way of doing it, but it's not my fault that it's happening this way. Like I don't want to. Ideologically speaking, I wasn't, in my head I was saying I'm not paying for this. Ideologically speaking, I'm paying for the extra milk. Ideologically speaking, I'm paying for chickens that are free and they lay one egg every couple of months and then I buy them. So in my head, that was what was it, right? It took somebody to say exactly the right phrase that was needed for me to hear that, well, that's not what you're paying for. And then I'm like, oh shit, yeah, that's not what I'm
Yeah, you
paying for.
probably had a lot of seeds also in your head because you were watching, right?
Yeah, I probably had, but like um that also sometimes gets me thinking, like, because we'll never be able to say exactly the right phrase to that person, right? So,
Sometimes.
sometimes yes, sometimes yeah, that's true, sometimes. But it gets me thinking, like, exactly if it's possible to do the perfect outreach, where you
Well, that's what
take
we're
this one.
trying to do all the time, right? That's what this
Yeah,
is
yeah,
about.
yeah, that's also why we're discussing this. But I'm wondering, like if we're able to do the perfect outreach and what that would entail, right? Getting a person from 0 to 10, from 0, not knowing even any of it, and then just becoming vegan afterwards, right?
Yep, that's what I try to do. I feel like
Yeah.
that's all of us. Yeah, we're kind of all in the same boat.
No, yeah, but
That's why these conversations are so important as well.
I mean, you say that's what we try to do, but I feel like I learned that what I actually try to do is get people closer to veganism. I don't hope that people are vegan at the end of the conversation. And sometimes I learned that it's better not to push with some people more than what you've already pushed. You see, like I feel. And actually, that was one conversation that I wanted to discuss with you, because you see, from the conversations that I have, I learned that I need at the end of these conversations for these people to get a couple of things right. One, that it's not needed to consume animal products, because a lot of people think that it's needed to consume, so that's why they don't stop, because they say it's a need. Two, that and that they are responsible for the thing, for the animals being used, abused, and exploited. And three, that what was it? Another one. No, that's it. I think these two are the most important part, right? And I think like if a person gets this from this conversation, then going forward, they may change whether they want to or not, right?
I feel like the first thing I don't necessarily agree with, because I feel like I understand like maybe people think that all vegans are unhealthy, but I don't think that's true. I think that just being dishonest, they know that you can be vegan. They've heard of like, I mean, most of the time they've heard of like athletes being on a plant-based diet. I don't think it's necessarily true. I think they just use it as an excuse and they pretend kind of. They're not very honest, I think. But I think the biggest thing is to make them feel like it's not on society, it's you. You have to be the change kind of thing, because you are doing
Yeah,
something that's not okay. Yeah, that's the biggest part for sure.
the responsibility that they have in the
Yeah.
matter. Yeah, but like you see, because the responsibility part, I completely agree, but I think that there's also a lot of people who think that they call it a necessary evil. They say, yeah, it's shitty that we're doing this, but they call it a necessary evil.
But
There's
they,
actually
they
a lot of,
know that veganism is a thing. They know that they are vegans. So that's why I think it's not honest.
yeah, but their argumentation is that, well, people are different. Some people, what works for
Mm.
some people may not work for others, right? Because that's the whole argumentation behind it. So that's why I think it's an important thing to tackle. That it's, oh yeah, my train of thought.
I mean,
Just
we have
remember
to
that.
do it when you have an objection about health. You have to say, like the Academy of Nutrition Dietetics, all this stuff. But I do
Yeah.
think that when they ask that, they're dishonest in the terms of like it's possible, because they are vegans and they know it. You know what I mean? But they might not think these people are healthy. That's for sure. They might not understand that. Yeah.
Yeah. So in that sense, don't you think it's an important thing to
I mean, when
make
they
sure?
bring it up, that's what I do. When I bring it up, obviously you have to address that. You have to say like, well, this big organization, and like 117 studies of meta-analysis, all this stuff. Like you're really understanding that it's established. And of course, they don't usually know that. I think, of course, when there's an objection about health or the environment, like in terms of like, if they say that a plant-based diet is bad for the environment, you have to address that, of course. But I wouldn't lead with that. That's what I mean.
No, I wouldn't lead with that also, of course. But that's a bit of a different thing, right?
Yeah.
Because whereas caring about the environment is optional, living and sustaining yourself isn't, right? So if some people think that in order to live and sustain yourself, you need to consume animal
Of
products,
course.
which some people
Yeah.
do, then you kind of need to curb that, right? And I feel like I ask that always at the beginning, not because I want to get into nutrition or anything, but rather because I want to make it clear that it's possible for them to be vegan and that they are responsible until they're not vegan, right? So that's kind of my whole point about it. And I actually was wondering if you have more points like this to help a conversation. Yeah.
In what sense?
In a sense, like let's say you would go into a conversation knowing that that person will not go vegan. What do you hope to accomplish from this conversation for this person?
That they feel shame about it? because that
that
way
they
that pushes people shame or guilt, or they feel some type of connection with the victims.
interesting.
I guess I think that's what makes you really stay vegan, you know? And I mean, be
Yeah,
vegan because that's really just what veganism is about. But like in terms of not just going plant-based, but really getting the thing.
interesting. I don't like shaming people. I don't,
I'm not
and it's
shaming
not.
people. I just want them to feel shame for supporting slavery because it's a very positive thing when you're doing something wrong to feel shame. I'm not like insulting them or disrespecting them or
No, no,
something,
no.
but I'm
Yeah,
saying, you are supporting this,
I've seen your videos, Lucy. I've seen you call people out. No, of course not. Of course, I don't. I'm not implying that you may call them. I think uh, my whole point is I don't. For me, at least, I don't know if I want them to feel necessarily shame, but rather responsibility in the matter. I don't
I
know
think
if
it's
it's
the same
necessarily
thing
feel.
to me.
It's just the
Because
same thing. Yeah.
if you're not uncomfortable and you don't feel like you're doing something wrong, and so you feel ashamed of this or like guilt, something like that, I don't feel like you will change. I think it's just like, oh, maybe it makes sense logically, but I don't really care. I don't feel that I am really like because I feel like most people who stay vegan, and especially activists, especially like people who really do something about it, they feel like the shame of having not been vegan, or like the guilt or whatever it is. I think that will
Yeah.
really
Interesting.
steer you.
Yeah, I don't know how to name it. For me, it's not the shame that maybe see that's an interesting thing. Maybe we project what helped us become vegan onto the people that we want to become vegan, right?
Or maybe the desire for a just world could do it for some people. I don't know, something like that. That would be very intrinsic. That could do it. Something
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. I actually haven't really, because you're right? Like I want people to know that they're responsible, and in a sense, knowing that they're responsible, I want them to act. But my fear is that spreading negative feelings, or not negative, but like bad feelings, whatever, spreading those ones like shame, or may turn them away more, because
But how would someone go vegan without this? Without the urgence, like without empathy, without all this stuff? Like how would they
empathy,
go
yeah.
vegan and
E-
stay vegan? But
Empathy,
that's
I
what it
completely
is.
agree.
You're ashamed that you were part of something that hurt them, you know?
I don't know, I
It's,
was
to
never
me, that's not
ashamed.
negative at all. To me, guilt and shame are what make you a good person. Because when you do something that hurts someone else, or you enslaving someone, you feel bad about it. And if you don't feel bad about it, why would you change when everything in the world is against you to actually go vegan? It's not a better experience to be vegan in terms of like the social aspect of it or whatever. It's not easier. It's not going to do something for you necessarily. Maybe it will in terms of plant-based diets, like health benefits, whatever, stuff like this. But that's not really what veganism, in terms of like,
No, it's not
yeah.
about that. No, I guess my point isn't necessarily uh
Maybe
that,
you
but
spread
rather,
empowerment to make the world better and to make this tough for the animals. Like that is like, you
maybe
can make them. You can be part of the better world for the animals. You can be part of changing this horrific thing. You know.
maybe that is indeed. I think I need to investigate what it is for me per se. It is definitely, there is an emotional side to it, and there is definitely empathy attached to it. But I
I've
wouldn't
yeah. Sorry.
no, I wouldn't necessarily call it shame, because for as I said, maybe we're projecting, because I myself have not felt shame when I switched to veganism, and I haven't felt guilt when I switched to veganism. For me, it was just and it wasn't not just logical. There was a feeling attached to it for sure, but there was more of a, I felt at some point in my life that there was unfairness towards me, and I feel like I don't want to be unfair towards others. I don't know. That's kind of what it was. So it was empathy, but I don't know what feeling it was
Yeah, so
attached
we
to it.
were projecting for sure. Yeah, but all
Yeah,
these things are what make people vegan because we are the proof of that, right? But I feel
yeah.
like also if you don't feel like, for example, if you're vegetarian, like because if you're going vegan, you have to never really engage in using animals, that sense. You have to always avoid it. And if you don't have this thing in you that checks you, and like you wouldn't feel guilt or shame for using an animal, then how would you stay on track? You know what I mean? That's what I wouldn't see how that would happen. You know, because if
I
you don't
mean,
feel that when you do it,
for me, it's what keeps me on track is that knowing how, like, it's
exactly. Yeah.
the golden rule, you know, that's what keeps me on track, honestly. Like, that's what keeps me on
But
track.
if you were to stray, wouldn't you feel shame and guilt? And wouldn't that help you get back on
No,
track?
not
You
really,
wouldn't?
not that much. No. I mean, I don't feel, uh, I feel shame and guilt, but I did so much therapy that shame and guilt don't really do much for me. Like, I feel them, but I'm like, okay, they're just emotions, right? So they don't, shame and guilt for me, they don't really drive me towards one thing or the other. So for me, it's a lot about the golden rule. Whereas I will live my life not doing to others that I don't want to be done onto myself. It's as easy as that, and that includes sentient individuals, animals. So for me, that's a huge drive for me, right? It's as simple as that.
I mean, I'm not saying that shame and guilt drive me, but I feel like that's what's keeping me in check, because I would be ashamed. Like, I'm ashamed that I was like an ex plant-based person and I went back to vegetarianism, because I know what it means for the animals, you know, but for the other animals. But I understand, like, it's not like, for example, this is the biggest, I mean, not really. The empathy of, like, yeah, the empathy of what you said, like the horrible things happening to them is like the
Yeah,
biggest driver. But
empathy. Yeah,
it's also, it's, to me, I see that as a very positive thing. For example, if I have guilt or shame about like really doing something that's not good for the environment, to me that's a very positive thing, because it makes me rooted in my values and what I know is best for the world and stuff, you know what I mean? Anyways, I
I know
think we're
what you
getting
mean.
very philosophical. I don't think
No,
it
no, I
matters
like it.
really, as long as you're vegan, you know.
Yeah, no, I,
It's
I see
interesting
what you
though.
mean, and I guess my only point is not necessarily that I don't feel shame. I do feel shame and guilt, and I
Yeah,
don't
yeah.
want to feel them, but it's not what drives me. I would say, you know, it's not, after a lot of therapy, I realized that I'm not running from negative feelings. So when I get negative feelings, I don't try to not do what generated the negative feelings
Huh.
anymore. You see what I mean?
To me, that's a message that you're not in line with your values. Not necessarily all the time, but like, if it's something that you investigate, you're like, oh yeah, you know, like, it's because of that I feel shame. And you
Yeah.
see that, you know, whatever. I need to
No,
plug
no,
in my
no.
computer. I'm
Yeah, go
sorry.
for it. I also am.
I just wanted to say, can you hear me? Because I unplugged my.
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to say also that I feel like the reason why I feel this way about like the shame and the guilt is because that's what make when I wasn't feeling that, I went back to vegetarian. And so to me, that's really what, when I felt like, when I saw myself doing that, I felt shame and guilt, and that was the message to me to like, oh yeah, you know, kind of thing. But I understand, anyways. I get it. It's not always the same for people, but that's totally doesn't matter really, as long as you're vegan, kind of thing.
No, I mean, it's.
Um,
I understand I understand what you mean, and as I said, I think I feel shame and guilt. I just don't think that shame and guilt drive me. That's the
I
only
wouldn't say it
thing that I'm
drives me
saying.
either, but it's like it keeps me in check.
Maybe,
You
yeah,
know?
maybe that's true. Maybe they do keep me in check, also, right? It's they. I obviously don't want to feel them, but I guess my point wasn't that for me they're definitely like they're not the main driver for me, like
Yeah,
not the
yeah.
main
I mean,
thing keeping
that
me in
makes
check.
sense. Yeah,
Li-
yeah. More like the like I wanted to change for the animals. I want a vegan world kind of thing. But in terms of kicking, to me, like I was more talking about because if to go vegan and not vegetarian kind of thing, that's what I meant. But not to keep going or to be an activist. Um,
yeah, yeah, it's interesting, I'm it's interesting. This is what I find interesting. What drives us, right? Like the difference between what drives us to do what we do, and yet we do the same thing, right? Because, like again, for me, it really is just as simple as the golden rule. As like, I really don't want anybody to be in the positions that I myself wouldn't want to be in a position, right? So, in that sense, I
I mean, it's
don't
that
want.
too. But I feel like when you begin, when they when like you talk about how horrific it is, like they will feel some shame and guilt because they're still doing it. And so I feel in that sense it will be, but it's both. Like it's also because they understand like the empathy and they want it to change for them because like it's both. I guess we're making a false dichotomy probably. I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
it's
for sure,
probably
for
that.
sure. Yeah, yeah. I'm sure there's other things driving people also, right? It's
Yeah.
not just the two things. Yeah. I guess it was because we started with what would drive people to go vegan, right? And what would keep them vegan, right? And in a sense, I try to explain to people. So yeah, I'm projecting my experience, right? I'm projecting that I'm hoping people will be the same. They will just apply the golden rule, because I think like they'll just be empathetic. It's a golden rule is just another way of saying empathy, right? It's being empathetic towards what you do.
Yeah, it
So
is.
I believe, I strongly believe that people, once they understand the idea that they want to be empathetic, I still tell them, try to make a case of telling them towards at the end of the um, conversation, as you mentioned, that they are responsible for it. But I don't know if that in my head for that is to generate shame or guilt or anything, but rather to generate awareness, or to, maybe it is shame and guilt. I don't know.
It's not shaming. It causes shame because the action they're doing is horrific. Difference. you know? You're not
Yeah,
shaming them. You're not like even saying like you should be ashamed or whatever it is. You're saying this is the reality. You are responsible for that, and it generates shame because it's just horrible. you know,
exactly. Yeah,
and
yeah,
it would be okay if we would shame them. It would be warranted. It would be warranted. It's valid, but I don't think it would work necessarily.
yeah.
But I think it would like it's fair. Like you shame someone who like rapes someone or something, it would be valid, but I'm not sure it would necessarily
Work.
work. Or maybe I don't know. Yeah.
Yeah. So in my sense, I think like, in my idea is to explain the reality, get them to be empathetic towards the animals, and then when I call them out on their responsibility, is in a sense to try and keep the empathy going, because you can say, well, I'm empathetic towards a lot of people that are what are happening in this world, but I'm just going to stop thinking about them once this conversation is done. But the reason that I know I'm directly implicated in this, then I can't not stop thinking, right? So in that sense, it's still kind of empathy that drives me, but not necessarily shame or guilt, or
I mean,
maybe
it's the
I do.
same.
Yeah, yeah. So apparently it is the
Because
same.
the
There you
empathy
go.
makes you feel ashamed because you're empathetic to like, what I mean? Because it hurts them. It's the same thing, anyways.
Yeah, yeah, it is the same thing. You're right. Yeah, well, I had a whole segment about empathy in activism, and how much should we be advocating for empathy. But I think we've already tackled this
Yeah.
more than. Okay, how do you measure success in activism?
I think I wouldn't know because I'm not sure if, like, for example, if someone is triggered, maybe that means that, like, maybe afterwards they were actually, because they were triggered, they were more close to like the empathy aspect, maybe, or like they felt bad about themselves or something, and maybe they're more likely to be vegan. So I wouldn't know, but I feel like when I feel like, oh, it went well, is when someone got how horrible it is and how it's like, for example, human slavery or human exploitation, and they get that and they're honest about it, and they're not just shooting excuses or objections. And especially but if they feel like, oh, this was interesting, thanks, I feel like, oh God, no. But if they feel like, yeah, yeah, I get it, like, oh wow, I'm like, okay, maybe they will change. Like I don't know if they're closer to obviously changing, like actually changing. I feel like in my world, but if they got what I meant, if it seems like they got what I meant, hopefully, I don't know
Yeah.
what you think.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. Yeah, that's kind of how I would measure success also in a conversation. If the person felt like they understood, like if I felt that the person understood the point, and that they want to take action from it. I don't expect
Yeah,
them to tell me that. I don't expect them to tell me that they're gonna go vegan on the spot, because I don't expect people to do that. But I expect them to take action, and when take action, I mean that they're going to go vegan at some point. It's just a matter of
yeah.
time, basically.
I can't help myself but expect that. I keep forgetting that I shouldn't expect that because it's natural, you know, like you want them, like, you know, you kind of like, because you want that so much, you kind of expect it because, like, why shouldn't they, you know? But also, I understand that if they didn't tell you they're gonna go vegan, it's not, you didn't fail, you know what I mean?
Exactly. Yeah, yeah. As long as they understand, like, honestly, like, the most important thing is understanding the problem and their responsibility in the matter, and then them deciding to go vegan is just a matter of time afterwards, if they really do understand that.
Hmm.
By the way, I don't know what's happening in the comments, but I see this question asked a couple of times. Lucy, would you say that you stopped being plant-based because you understood what you considered veganism as a utilitarian cause to reduce animal suffering? I don't understand the question.
Hold on, let me reread it to myself because I need to. Yeah. So basically, like, I think he means like a plant based. Plant based was like a utilitarian thing, meaning like if you're plant based, it's not a deontology thing. It's like, well, I'm gonna not you like I'm not gonna eat any animal products, but I might exploit animals in other ways. And so in that sense, like I'm reducing suffering because I'm doing it less or something like that, or like vegetarianism in some sense. Some people might see it like that. But yeah, basically, like, I mean, as I said before, I was plant based until I understood like the definition because I thought I was vegan, but I don't think I was because of the original definition. You know, like I didn't understand. Like I wasn't against animal use exploitation necessarily. I was against like um at some point. I mean, maybe I was, but I didn't understand it very clearly. And so if I feel like if I didn't understand clearly in myself, I wasn't really honing that. I feel like if you're really to to support something, you have to understand what really is the definition of something, you know? But even if I
Yeah.
didn't like the exploitation, even for example, like the reason why I went vegetarian was because I thought like, well, the eggs are down the road in the farm, you know, it's less suffering. And so I did not understand. And so I wasn't vegan, you know, because I
Yeah.
was supporting exploitation and use of other animals. So
Yeah. Okay. I understand now the question. So it says being plant-based. Would you say that you stopped being plant-based because you understood what you considered veganism was a utilitarian cause to reduce animal suffering? I think instead of as, if it was, I would have got it better. But anyway, yeah, I don't know if, I don't think that's what made it for you, right? I don't think it's because it was a utilitarian cause that you switched to being veganism, but rather because when you understood what veganism is, that's what you wanted to do, not because
yeah,
not because the
because it
other one
makes more
was,
sense.
yeah, not because the other one was a utilitarian cause, right? I don't think
Yeah, it's
it was.
because it doesn't make sense in that sense. Like you can't rape someone with less, like, you know, and it being less suffering and still being okay. So that's why, you know.
Yeah, completely agree with that. Yeah, and yeah, I think it was the same for me. Once I understood exactly this cause, I'm like, yeah, no, anything else, it's ridiculous. Anything else is just, yeah, a form of utilitarianism. But the reason why I went to veganism wasn't because everything else was a form of utilitarianism, but rather because veganism made sense.
Sure.
Right? It's not. I chose veganism because it's veganism, not because of all the other causes being bad. In that sense, that's kind of what I mean.
Well, I don't agree with that, because the problem with like being like making it about suffering is that it doesn't like it's not a clear message, because it's very like it's all a spectrum, you know what I mean? And so like I don't agree with advocating that veganism is about reducing suffering. I don't think it's good. That's why I don't do that, you know. And it's also because
Yeah.
I don't think people who advocate for that, I don't think they fully necessarily support it, because I feel like if they would understand the definition, like the original definition of veganism, they would get it. But after talking, like, and maybe understanding it, because it took me a while to understand, like, why, you know, I had to have a lot of like thinking about it and conversations and like, why is this such a big deal kind of thing. But then you think about like, oh, it's welfareism. This is the same as what we used to do with
Yeah.
welfareism. So it's like, okay, yeah, I get it, you know.
Oh, it's interesting. Yeah, like for me, when I learned veganism as a individual, each individuals, well, not each individual, I already thought about each individual matters, but when I learned veganism being about not using animals at all, about the idea itself, right, that they are, in a sense, moral, should be considered moral, and well, not moral agents. I don't know. They should consider. Say that again.
Patience,
Mm,
patience, moral
maybe
patience.
patience. Yeah, they should be considered morally, right? They deserve moral consideration. So in that sense, that's kind of what made me go towards that definition of veganism. Everything else, yeah, it made sense behind
Hmm.
me, but it wasn't that I switched because the other definitions were forms of utilitarianism. I switched because just the new definition was much better. That's kind of the only point that I wanted to make, because it felt like that question was, did you like, to me, the way I read that question was, did you switch to veganism because the other forms were utilitarianism? And the answer is no. I didn't switch to veganism because the other forms were utilitarianism. I switched to veganism because veganism made sense. The other things being forms of utilitarianism is just it's just a side thing that happened to be.
You mean outside of veganism, I'm not like against utilitarianism necessarily, kind of thing? Is that what you mean?
Even in the
Because to me,
case
it's
of
the same thing.
even in the case of veganism, right? Like I don't I like
I don't. Oh, I can see you no more.
yeah. My camera battery died.
Oh
It will take
no.
2 minutes to change. It's fine. It takes one
Okay,
minute
cool.
to change because I have another. Yeah.
Okay, for you it's like that, but I don't agree. Like for me, it's not like I think it's not good to advocate like that. It's not veganism. That's just not what it is. You know.
So Lucy, I'm not advocating for utilitarianism.
Yeah, I know.
What I'm saying is that the switch to veganism should happen not because all the other forms are utilitarian, but rather because veganism is the moral philosophy that it is.
I don't see how they're different. To me, it's the same thing. It's good. Like the veganism is better because it's better than this. So this becomes not as good and not good. You know what I mean? Like I just don't.
I guess
Anyways, is
the
this important? I'm not sure.
no, it's not important. It was just a question that was asked in the public. You're right. It's not necessarily important. It's I guess I just like I like to be clear about I don't know. I just like things clear. I'll be back in a minute, okay? Because
All right.
I'll have to refresh. Wait, I'll remove my.
Guys, if you have questions for me or comments you'd like me to read, um, put it in the chat. Oh, asparagus. But even if it's not part of veganism, as part of a larger discussion of animal ethics, I think we should try to reduce suffering and harm. Oops. And harm to animals, including in crop production. I totally agree. Like it's just the problem is when it's making veganism about that. But of course, we all agree we should reduce like the harm as possible in all respects. Obviously, it's like, for example, in the human example, I feel like it would be human trafficking has to be abolished and has to not be about suffering because if you're if you're drugging a human who's trafficked, it's still gonna be, and they're not feeling any pain. It's still gonna be wrong. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't. I mean that is that, and we should reduce the accidents on the road, and we should aim for less cancers, like stuff like that. Thank you for all the nice compliments. Lucy, my question was if you felt maybe overwhelmed to reduce suffering as much as practical as possible. I didn't get that. I'm sorry.
I'm back.
Hello.
Hello. So we had some good strong topics here. Yeah, it's my next question, if I can ask you, is how do you see the future of vegan activism in let's say 5 years?
I'm already starting to notice something. I've noticed that there's more talk about the original definition and more like talk like using the words use and exploitation. I really like that. I think that's really cool. I think there's going to be more of a shift towards that. And that's amazing. I hope it continues. And I think there's going to be more activists, but that might be because I'm just started activism and I feel like there's more of them just because I'm exposed to it. So I don't know, probably just my take on it, but I hope I'm right. I think there's going to be hopefully more talk. Like I feel like in the media we see it a bunch, like on TV and stuff like that. Like it's just more talk about veganism. That's amazing. And I think there's going to be more talk about lab-grown meat, stuff like this. I don't really know. I don't know what's going to happen in terms of like, like the Sonoma trials and stuff. Like the things about like this type of stuff. I'm a little worried about it. I'm not sure I have a strong position on it, but I think there's going to be a lot of turmoil inside the movement about this and outside, of course. And yeah.
Speaking of that, I was actually discussing with some friends about whether, obviously veganism is about the animals, right? It's about everything that we do and how we treat animals and opposing all of it and just treating them as if we would treat other human beings, right? Basically giving them rights. So but one thing is, like with the Sonoma trial thing, that, and maybe also watching other videos, that I realized is that would it be helpful for the movement if vegans or veganism would be protected by law?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
Like that you have the right to be vegan and you are not allowed, like, to be a protected status, just like it would be to be, I don't know, Muslim or any form of religion.
Elaborate, please.
Yeah. So my thinking was like, I saw this footage of a slaughterhouse worker and Joey Carbstrong speaking. Well, not this, his latest video. I don't even remember, like a video before, like, and he was obviously yelling, "Hey, if any of you want to wear a camera or whatever," right? And to expose slaughterhouses, right? And I realized in UK a lot of slaughterhouses are exposed. In Netherlands they're not. And obviously, if you were to work in a slaughterhouse and you were to become vegan yourself, everybody would know that you become vegan, right? Because you're going to eat vegan, something's going to happen, right? And let's say you work in a slaughterhouse in a place where you don't necessarily handle the animals and you can't quit your job for whatever reason. I don't know, it's a hypothetical in my hand. I'll just go to the process of where I reached that. And then I realized that, okay, well, if footage from that slaughterhouse appears, secret footage, everybody will blame obviously the vegan, and then that person will get fired, right? And my whole thing was like,
Oh, because they would
okay,
think that they took the footage. Okay.
yeah, and they would think, well, and then my whole person was my whole train of thought then became, well, what if there was, what if, I don't think there are people who have been discriminated against for being vegan at their job place or whatever, but what if wouldn't it be interesting for the movement to have being vegan as a protected status? Because in that sense, then you could never be fired for being vegan. In that sense, you could,
Yeah,
as an
recognized as a protected minority or something like that. But we are,
something
yeah.
like that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
because I think
Had
like it
it
could
being
support
recognized.
it could accelerate the movement in that sense, right?
Interesting. I never thought of that. I don't know. I mean, we
Yeah,
are a minority, and we should be like it should be recognized just like a religion. I mean, I know it's not religion, but like or like even the color of your skin or something like that. Like, yeah, but it's just it shouldn't like we should just make it recognized like we are a minority, and everybody's so freaking anti-vegan that they don't even notice that we are freaking like we are oppressed in some sense because people are really just going at us sometimes, you know.
yeah,
But I don't know.
and I feel like the repercussions could be very good also for like vegan kids, right? Because at schools,
Ooh.
I'm sure they're given foods that are not necessarily vegan. So in that sense, all the institutions would be obliged by law to provide for vegan, just like they would for a Muslim person. They would never give them pork, right? Just like in that sense, they would have to provide for a vegan person to
That
not
would be
ever
good.
give them. Yeah, that would be good, right? So I have had mixed feelings with this conversation, by the way. Some people are like, well, no, we fight for animals. Why would we ever advocate for this? Like,
No,
yeah,
it
we
would
fight
help.
for it,
Yeah,
but it would
yeah.
help, right? Yeah, exactly. Okay, interesting, man. It's interesting that you
But
got
if we
it
have
so
more
easily.
vegans, but if we have more vegans, it will also help that because the more vegans also, you know, I'm not saying we shouldn't do what you said, but I'm saying everything we're doing basically is going to help, you know,
Yeah,
that
yeah, yeah. No,
aspect of it.
yeah, and I truly believe that at some point we are going to have a lot of vegans. There is going to be a critical mass,
Just look at
and
the UK.
just look at the UK, and at
Mhm.
when that critical mass is reached, mm, I think like all of these industries, animal agriculture, and all this, they'll play
It's going
dirty.
to be too expensive. They will not be able to maintain subsidies or whatever. So that will be really cool.
Yeah, I hope that will be the case because in US, I know that supply and demand don't even work for animal agriculture in US, right?
To a
Like
certain extent, right?
to a certain
Because
extent,
at
yeah.
some point it will not be profitable at all. So
Yeah, I know that, like, I know for dairy products, cheese and such, government will
but
pay
we
for
but we're
them.
only talking about food as well because like for example all the
Yeah, it's
types
true,
of
it's true, it's true, it's true.
exploitation it doesn't so it does apply in that sense.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
But
mean,
yeah.
like food is obviously the biggest issue, right, with
Hmm.
veganism. Like,
Yeah,
I
but I
don't
think
think
it's important to remind
it's
people,
it's
you know.
true. It's true. It's true. Like, that's also when I ask people about veganism, most of them mention food, but I make a habit of telling them that it's not just about food. Obviously, it's a whole thing. We just oppose animals. I think everybody does, and I try to put this definition out there so that they understand that they might actually already be vegan. They just don't follow through with it or something. So
I don't think
that's
they're vegan. But
no,
they
no, no.
might
But like,
have like be aligning with it.
exactly. Yeah, in that sense, I formulated. Yeah, I'm not saying
Yeah,
that
yeah, I
they're
get
vegan.
it.
No, yeah, yeah. So yeah, but the food is the biggest part of it. The food is, unfortunately. I feel like even if you like if we eliminate although also the fur thing, what the fuck? Fur, leather, down jackets, it's also a big deal. Those things are like they just piss me off so much because like while food is this one thing that you do daily. So I can sort of say, I understand the reluctance of people to get this from a stranger. Like, I don't understand the reluctance of this other thing. Like, I just don't understand how people can still buy leather and fur and all of it. Like, I just don't get it. Like, everybody knows that that's horrible, right?
No. They just think it's okay to use animals, and they like, even like you said earlier, like I didn't feel like I was paying for that. It's not me, it's them, and like deflection of responsibility as well, and also just not
Yeah.
caring because other animals are inferior to them. So
Oh yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that whole thing. Ugh. Okay. On the future of veganism, I was mostly I'm curious, what are some milestones that you hope that the movement will achieve in the next 3 to 5 years? And maybe tell me some of your milestones that you hope to achieve in the next year.
Okay, for the movement, I mean, in a realistic sense, of course, because but like I would say, I just hope that we have more activists, because I think that's the key. And
Yeah.
I hope that there's more online activists, because that I think has a big impact. I hope that we are more on the same page about the original definition. I think that would make us most effective. And I hope that I don't know. It's not that I'm hoping. It's just like I see these things happening, and I don't know. I don't have a number or anything like that, but yeah, pretty much. And for me, I mean, I hope I get my green card and I can monetize, because that would help me out. But apart from that,
Fingers
I just
crossed.
hope, yeah. But I hope that I would also, obviously, more, like the milestones, like 2,000, 3,000, whatever, all this stuff. I hope I get. I mean, it's not a milestone, but I just hope I feel like I'm really feeling good about my editing, because there's always, some things you don't like, and that's healthy because that makes you better. But I hope I get to this point where I'm like, oh, this is really good. Everything I do, like right now, feels like a bonus. That would be good. And maybe some collaborations that could be milestones for me. I don't know, something like that. Doing more events here. I think more of a hub here, because honestly, I tried to do with the free events, but only one person shows up, and sometimes not even. So I can't even do it
Oh,
alone,
wow.
because I need someone to have a car, because I don't have a car, and it's just a mess. It would be nice.
Oh wow, only one person shows up to the Wida free event thing.
Sometimes two, but
where are you based? I'm sorry, I don't know.
Bozeman, Montana, in the US.
Okay, interesting choice. Why did you choose that? Because
I
if
didn't
you say
choose
you
it.
want,
It's basically my husband was here, and so we met online, and then I came here.
Nice. Okay, I understand. Yeah.
Are you from Amsterdam?
No. I'm from Romania also. So.
Oh, okay. Where did you go to Amsterdam?
When?
Why?
Why? Because I didn't like Romania, so I left Romania and I said I'll choose another country. It was between Germany and Netherlands, and Netherlands was the one where I first got a job, so it was Netherlands.
All right.
Yeah. US wasn't really on the map for me, but afterwards it became on the map.
It's harder to immigrate here, I can tell you. I don't know if it's harder, but it's probably harder. Yes, it's probably harder.
It is, yeah. I heard a lot of bad things about the credit thing. With it's hard that because the first time you come there, you don't have any credit score or anything, and it's difficult to get anything because everything you need to buy, I have to get a credit card or.
Oh well, I'm lucky. I came to someone, so I wasn't like on my own. So for me, I never encountered that. But yeah, that probably is really hard.
Yeah. Yeah, that's cool. Did you ever do outreach in French?
No, I was here for like 5 years before I started, actually. But I did do some activism, just a little bit, when I was first vegan. I did some flyer stuff and went to a protest or two, but it wasn't very consistent.
Yeah, fair enough. And what drives you nowadays? Like nowadays, what is it that drives you? Your consistency, your I want to go out there and speak to more people. What is it that gives you that focus, that drive?
It really depends. Okay, I had a bout of laziness and kind of like a motivation like these last 2 weeks because I had a kind of a burnout or something, and I've been trying like different schedules and stuff like this, and I just today I just started a new one, and I've been like experimenting with what works and what doesn't work in terms of like not burning out. And I right now what motivates me is just like I need a structure again because I needed to take a break from structure of like having set hours and just doing it kind of like more freely. But now structure is really helping me. um, and it's just like this time you're going to focus fully, and then you're not going to feel guilty because you know you did enough that day because you planned the amount of hours and just fully immersed in it, and then you're good. You don't think about it. So this helps me. But of course, like just like the anger and the horrific memories or whatever of like the footage and just knowing that it's happening, and anger is a big thing. Just when I
It is,
see,
yeah.
like, for example, in the comments, I don't answer anymore because I'd rather do more content than doing comments these days. And I feel like I'm just not sure about that for me right now. But anyways, when I read comments from people who are triggered on my posts and they're saying things like that are triggering me, it feels like, oh, it makes me want to do even more because like I hate these people who are being supremacists as hell, but it makes me feel happy that I triggered them, so something went inside, and that just the fact that I can make someone uncomfortable about the status quo, what they're doing. I know that this will happen at least, and I know there will be some vegans I will make, and at least I will push it further, and that really motivates me. Yeah.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah. That's actually a good
What about you?
motivation to have. No, I'm similar. I mean, honestly, to me, I quit my job at some point, and I burned out, and I just never want to do that job again. So I started just making videos at some point, and um, I was plant-based. I wasn't vegan when I started making videos, but then I became vegan, and I realized just how important it is. So I started making videos about veganism, and for me, my whole life, I just wanted to fight for something, and fighting for veganism really just gives me energy every time. But yeah, I also burn out. I also have days when like I get so pissed off when I read a comment about somebody who's like, yeah, but crop that though. Oh, dude, just Google it. Can you just Google it? It's like what is it so
And if you care
difficult
about that, come on. You should
yeah,
care
like
about
if
the other animals as well.
is it that difficult to just Google it before you drop a comment? Please, just Google it, and then simple as that. And then I either give them a link or explain, and then I don't have that patience anymore for comments anymore. So I sometimes I try to stay clear of answering comments because I know that demotivates me sometimes.
Oh
So
yeah.
yeah, so I kind of go away that, and I hate to say it, but like I hate it when people are sanctimoniously vegan. I hate that.
What do you mean?
I mean, I oppose animal use. 100% I do, right? It's just that's what I fight for. But I will constantly also question other things, right? I want to question. I think it's important that we question and that we discuss these things, right? Like uh, I don't know, like I discussed with you just now the practicability aspect of it, or like I understand it's not about that. I understand that, but in the end, right, we want total animal liberation. We want that, and maybe there's other ways of getting there. Maybe there's other ways of tackling it. I don't know, like I will continue on doing this and this type of activism. As far as I know, this is the best one, right? And this feels like the best one, and this but I can't question things. Why is it so bad to question it, right? So, and a lot of the times when I question this, people are like, yeah, but that's not what veganism is. I know, but that's not what I'm saying. I'm not saying veganism is about that. I'm saying, what if to get a person vegan, we need to get them plant-based first? What if that is actually easier, right? If it's easier to get a person plant-based before them getting vegan, should we not do that?
It's a good question, but I feel like I understand because like when you're plant-based, you're less identified with like maybe being anti-vegan in some sense. But I feel like plenty of other people are doing that anyways. There's way more people advocating for a plant-based diet than there are people advocating for veganism. And at the end of the day, that's not what all animal exploitation is, you know? So I
Yeah.
think we deal with the root of the problem, and it's already out there, it's already done. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't think it's the best. No,
I'm not
I
saying
wouldn't
it
do that.
is.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
not
good to
saying it is.
question.
I'm saying it's good to question it. Exactly. I'm saying
Yes,
it's good to
first.
discuss it. I'm saying it's good to put it out there. Fuck it. What's so bad about questioning it? What's so bad about
That makes us
like
better.
after exactly that makes us better in the end, right? So I'm not saying I'm not advocating for it.
So you
I'm
mean
just
by
questioning.
sanctimonious someone who says we can't discuss it?
I mean, yeah. I mean, there's people in the vegan community that who actually instantly cut off the conversation. That's not vegan. Full stop. Okay, it's not. But wait a minute. Let's discuss it. We should be
Okay.
able to have
Because
discussions,
I
right?
feel
We
like
should
I'm
have,
sanctimonious, but I like it. I don't know. I feel like all activists are sanctimonious, but that's a good thing in terms of like we are preachy, you know,
we are preachy in that sense. Yes,
but not in
indeed.
cutting the conversation. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but like conversations, we should be able to have discourse no matter what, right? I think like topics should be discourseable, like even like as we did just before about lab grown, right? That's we need to be able to have conversations about things. We need to be able to agree to disagree. We need to be able to do all of this.
Not that. I don't like that.
If we're gonna cut all the conversations if we cut all the conversations in the middle, then we just frustrate
There's
one
no
person.
growth. Yeah.
Yeah, there's no growth there, right? So that's kind of one of the other things that kind of sometimes it just gets me. Like, I am fighting for the animals. I am really all about that, but I really also want to just discuss the whole thing about it. You know, you know, when you do, I have had weeks when I did activism every day for 5 or 6 days straight for 3 or 4 hours a day, and getting home after doing 5 or 6 days of activism and getting home and reading some comments saying, well, it's not veganism, or somebody saying, oh, you're not vegan enough because I'm not saying that. It's just, you see what I mean? Like, it's a bit discouraging when you're like, I'm not advocating for anything else other than total animal liberation. I'm just questioning. I'm just having conversations. That's all it is. So yeah, that's also one of the things that discourages me.
Would it be helpful to the conversation if the people said, well, if they say that's not veganism, though, that's something to discuss as well.
It is, exactly. If they said that's not veganism, that's something to discuss as well. Yeah, that's true. That's true. Just like we did with the lab meat again. I'm not. I don't know. For me, nothing is like, I can discuss whatever. I feel like discussing is there's not a lot of issues that stem from discussing subjects. Sure, it can be problematic with certain things, but I feel like discussing it can only serve to help in the end and clarify. And
some subjects I think should be kept under, like, behind closed doors. Like, I'm going to say something very controversial, I guess, because this subject has been crazy, but I feel like, okay, yeah, then it's complicated because I'm not sure what would constitute a private space, but I don't like how it's being done right now. Okay, the thing about the wild animal suffering, I empathize with it, but I think it's very dangerous for it to be online in a space that's reachable for anti-vegans and non-vegans. I think it's going to be absolutely freaking terrible for how vegans are perceived, and therefore for the vegan cause. I mean, I don't have an issue with it being discussed, but I have an issue with it being online where anti-vegans will use this. And so, yeah, that's what that's just one of the subjects that I think should not be discussed in online, like in YouTube
like
spaces.
animal welfareism, you mean?
No, like the wild animal suffering thing, the whole debate.
The
that.
wild animals. Okay,
Yeah,
I didn't hear.
I think we should discuss it, but I think we should discuss it in vegan-only spaces.
I completely agree with that one. We should discuss that one on vegan-only spaces. Yes, it's easy for non-vegans to, because they wouldn't understand it, to get a. But even in that discussion, right? I had this discussion with Harry, for example, who was, we know, is not everybody agrees with his position, let's put it this way. And like a lot of people were like just attacking him, and that's kind of what I mean maybe when I say sanctimonious. Like, let's not attack each other. Let's like,
Yeah.
we can
Yeah, that's why
clarify
debates
position.
can be a little because it's not like about winning, it's like about really trying to find a third thing. And sometimes there's no way to agree, but that's fine. Because by talking about it, we are putting it out there and we are discussing it first. Like, just like we did with the lab grown meat. We don't agree still to some degree in some sense, but in some degree we understand where we agree, and we're like, it's important to
Exactly.
discuss it. Even if we don't end up having an agreement, it's a very important thing too, because then other people might bring up other things or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. Discussion, always be discussing. And yeah, I agree with you that some topics are better left discussed in like vegan
Yeah, but
spaces
not
rather
like
than
the way we do activism, for sure. That's something that needs to be public, I
yeah.
think.
Yeah, no, true. That's true. Yeah, like the wild animals thing is definitely not something that should be public. Like, it should just be amongst vegans. But either way, yeah, it's an interesting discussion, even that one for me. But I just I'm fascinated by
Yeah,
by things that I'd never thought about. And honestly, the wild animal things, I never thought about it until somebody pointed it out to me, and I'm like,
same.
it's interesting. It's an interesting perspective. It is an interesting thing. What can I say? And then you have to take a side on it. And then if you take a side that somebody does not like, then they call you not vegan anymore. Or if you take a
Yeah,
side
but
that,
I like I like what Sky said, because he said it's not a vegan issue, and it's true. It's and
exactly.
people know it. Like, people in those debates know it, and they say it. But it's just that it if you are a vegan activist, and you're talking about that online, you're associated with that. So it's going to backfire on veganism and the animals that are exploited by humans.
Yeah,
So
totally agree. Totally agree. Yeah. And I saw, David, you asked me a couple of times what sanctimonious means. Honestly, I can't name it per se. I would say sanctimonious to me in this scenario that I was just describing means the minute you start saying somebody's not vegan for expressing something or discussing something, then I feel it's a bit weird, right? Like, if their position is clear that we shouldn't want animals to be used for any reason, then they're vegan. Anything else outside of that is just discussing. That's all I mean, right? Am I wrong about this? I don't know.
I think I agree, because that's what it is. Like, it's just a definition of it. But
Yeah.
I think it's fair to say that this is not vegan if they don't think it's vegan. That's something to discuss as well. I think,
Yeah. It's true. It's true. It's
or they're
just,
being in a way that doesn't align with veganism or something, in your opinion, but it doesn't have to be like a personal attack. It's just something that's important to talk about sometimes, you know?
yeah,
Like,
completely agree.
yeah.
Completely agree. Yeah. 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 Somebody's not vegan if they don't hold the vegan principles. Utilitarians are not vegan. Completely agree. Yeah. Utilitarians are not vegan in that sense. Yeah. And I don't value utilitarianism in absolutely any way, by the way. And for the same reason that I value veganism, because the golden rule, right? That's to me, right? I believe it's like, in a utilitarian universe, anybody could be a target, and just a simple,
Yeah.
right? That's why I don't like utilitarianism. That's why I don't subscribe to it. So yeah. And veganism is not subjective. No, it's not. I agree. It's not subjective. It's pretty objective. But there are topics, and we can all agree that there are things that are gray, and that we should be discussing them. And they're not about veganism, but they're in the same, I don't know, sphere.
Related in some sense, like they're about animals, I guess,
Yeah.
other animals. I get that.
Yeah. Exactly. Okay, well, I have a couple more questions, and then I think we've already did like almost 3 hours, which is a long boy by now, and I appreciate you
Very
for being
interesting.
here for
Yeah,
so
to
long.
chat with you. I'm enjoying it.
Me too, me too. Okay, so uh, balancing personal and activist life, which is something we kind of touched upon, but do you have any tips and tricks on how to balance your personal life and your activist life, or your personal life and your vegan life? Because it's easy as vegans and as vegan activists to, at least to me, it's very easy to just talk about veganism and vegan activism because I'm very passionate about it and I really go there in a lot of the conversations. But I'm assuming in personal life it's not as easy to just do that. So do you have any tips and tricks, or how is that going for you?
Okay, it's interesting because I've noticed, like, okay, by personal life, I assume that it's more like when I'm not doing activism.
Yeah.
But to some people, it might also mean, like, for example, in social circles, and I'm very introverted. I'm kind of a hermit apart from outreach and doing the vegan potlucks. I don't really see anyone because I don't want to, because I'm an introvert. But anyways, like, I feel like it's very different in terms of, like, I feel like the tips are that someone who is always in social circles, a vegan, like the tips it would give would be different than my tips because I'm not. I choose not to hang out with anyone really, vegan or not vegan. Just I love it for activism and work and stuff. It's just I the way I relax is alone. But apart from the social aspect, then because my social is different than if you would choose to be social, anyways, would be I
Understand
think
that?
it. Yeah, I think that it's very helpful for me to have like a time where I'm doing activism fully and I'm completely devoting myself. And I'm thinking about the amount of time that would be healthy and sustainable for me as an activist, because it's very important that you continue to do activism throughout your life, you know. And sometimes it will be more activism, sometimes it will be less because you have different needs, and sometimes, you know, it's just you're burning out or whatever. So it's important that you switch it up. But
Yeah.
I think it's important to also listen to what you need. Like if you need like a break, it's okay to take a break. It's actually important that you make sure it's sustainable. And sometimes it's okay to do more activism than other times, you know, just try to be consistent. And I'm setting myself like a schedule where I have breaks and everything, and I find that the structure helps me with not feeling guilty, because I have this huge problem with, like, I mean, since I've become an activist, to feel like I mean, a lot of people have that I'd never do enough kind of thing, because it's never enough. It is true. From the animal's point of view, it's true, but you have limits.
Yeah.
And you have to be sustainable. So you have to, you know, like consider like how many hours per week you would or something. Some people will not work. Some people it works better for them to just be more flowy about it. And sometimes it worked better for me because I needed a break from structure, whatever. But for me, it works. Also, um, I mean, it's important that when I mean, personally, I think that when you are not doing activism, it's important that you have parts of like, it's great to watch activism things, is very important. I think like vegan stuff, it's very important to read or to whatever, educate yourself in any way possible. But to me, that is part of the activism. You know, and there has to be a little chunk of time at least that you're not thinking about this to recharge. I think personally, I found that I need that to be sane. And make sure to be healthy as much as you can. Like, you know, like just meditation is very helpful, I think, for activists. I personally think we need it because with
Interesting.
all the trigger stuff, it helps with, you know, like it helps with your sleep, it helps with your obviously regulating your emotions, being more introspective, whatever. And I've noticed I'm more creative also with activism. I have more ideas when I meditate, so I think it's great. Making sure you sleep enough, you work out, all this stuff, you eat well, because you're like a little machine, a little activism machine. So you have to take care of yourself as well in that sense. And I think surrounding yourself with people who support what you're doing is very important. It can be just one person online or whatever. Like, just make sure that you have some people around you. I think we all do that anyways, but like that you don't have to fight about like something that's already hard in and of itself. Even when you have support, you have to be careful that you have those people in your life, right? Because it's already hard enough as it is, you know. Um, yeah, pretty
Yeah.
much. We all are really. All
Yeah.
activists are a little. Yeah.
Yeah. I guess my question was also, how do you disconnect from veganism, right? But you said meditation, like because you know, yeah, we're obviously all passionate about activism, but we also, as you said, if with every passion, you can burn out. So it's important that you also find time to disconnect from it. So how do you disconnect? Is that one of those? Do you have any other hobbies maybe, or um, yeah, that's where I was aiming towards the question, by the way.
I think it's a very good way to put it, because I think a lot of actors, especially in the beginning, you're so connected to the victims, and it's so like you. I mean, you're right. If you feel like I should dedicate every second of my life to it, you're right in some sense, because it's true. Like, it is definitely as horrific as that, but it's not sustainable. That's the problem. You will be more efficient if you work a little less. Like, there's been this. I think this is very good for activists to know. If you don't know that already, that they've done these studies to know the amount of hours for productivity, and they found that people who work less than 8 hours per day will be more productive, actually more
Of course.
productive and more efficient. So it's not the quantity, it's the quality, and it's the amount, like the efficiency, really. So it is important to remember that it's not like, oh, I'm going to completely sacrifice myself. Like, it's not about that. It's about what's the most efficient for the animals. And so for me, it was very, very hard to learn to disconnect. I've struggled with that since I was a teen, but then I learned like it's like I think I've already touched on that. Like, it's very dangerous to compartmentalize to some degree, because you can actually lose sight of the victims. It can happen. It happened to me. And you gotta be very careful to not lose sight. But as a tool, I think it's important for an activist to be able to use that so that they can actually block it out just for a little bit of the day, so that they can actually recharge and not freaking lose their shit all the time. Because if you're always
Yeah.
connected to the victims, you can't be productive. I couldn't. I was freaking out all the time. So it's just a tool to be able to be more productive and more efficient for the animals. But of course, be careful. And I I honestly kind of disconnect often, even when I do activism, because I find that if I think about the victims in a way that's like raw, I I'm not productive. I can't fucking do it. Maybe some people it helps their activism, and it helps mine in some way, because I remember like the horrors and like, okay, but like I need like 1 second of that, and I'm like, okay, you know. I don't know, it depends for everybody, but I feel like some level of disconnection is something that really helped me.
Yeah, that's a very good point of putting it. Yeah. And
It's a little weird,
I
but
no, it's true. It's true. We all need a bit of disconnection from the whole idea, right? It's, once you get that, how fucked up it is that we treat animals differently and we use them, it's fucked up. It's fucked up. The whole, like, once you get that, what's happening is fucked up, it's very difficult to disconnect because it's all around you, right? Um, but it is important to find ways to disconnect. And yeah,
how do you do
not
that?
so yeah, compartmentalizing is one of the things I also do, right? It's that. And I can't meditate. I tried it several times. I'm not a meditator apparently. Or for me, for
It's
me
very hard
actually,
for me still, but
for me activism is a form of meditation, to be honest. It's like when I do activism,
yeah,
I
in the
don't
flow.
think about, yeah, I'm just out of my mind, out of everything. So in a sense,
Mhm.
but when I come back home, I do this other thing that is kind of like the opposite of meditation, which I learned as a trick that helps me, and that is talking about my day, saying like it's kind of like journaling, but like just saying it out loud. For me, it brings so much value to myself, and just letting everything out, and then I can breathe, and then I do something else. I don't know. I have other hobbies also, right? I'm also very fascinated about LGBTQ rights. I like to go to protests about that also. So um, women's rights also. So some. I'm fascinated about a lot of stuff. To me, like, yeah, veganism just seems like if you ask me, like, veganism is not just that it's extremely important, not just because of the sheer amount of numbers that these victims there are, or the sheer amount of ignorance that people have towards it, but it's also so important because it feels like such a baseline for everything else. Like,
Yes, yes.
right? Like,
Yeah.
once veganism becomes true, once everybody understands that whole cause, why would anybody have a discrimination against LGBTQ, against women, against anything else? It just would be ridiculous.
It will be less likely to happen for sure.
Exactly. Yeah. So in that sense, it's also drives me, right? But yeah, disconnect. Also, I smoke weed, so
Just do something that immerses you in something else, and you kind of forget
exactly.
about. It's like
Music.
some video games or whatever the hell you enjoy. Something like that you can just forget about it. I think that is huge. I can't
It
function if I don't do that. I mean,
yeah,
as an
it's true.
activist.
That's why I said, like, after I did those 5 or 6 days of activism, I learned that it's important that, because now I don't have a job, so for me there's no such thing as weekend, but it's important that I take 2 days. Sometimes I feel like I only need one per week, but it's important, and I force myself, take 2 days per week. Take it, doesn't matter. Yeah, maybe, and even if I do some work, I always cap it. The minute Sky's morning thing starts, bam, done. No more work afterwards. I also enjoy Sky's morning show a lot. So that's so the minute that starts, I'm like, no more, which is usually at 1 p.m. for me. So I do a lot of work until 1 p.m. some days, on, well, a lot, whatever.
And it's also, yeah, you remembering you're gonna be more efficient. Like it's also for that, it's also
Yeah,
because it matters that you're healthy and stuff, but also because it will make you more sustainable. How many activists have freaking burned out and never came back? That happens
exactly.
way more often than we kind of care to think about. But like, it's very important.
I mean, I burned out at my previous job, so I liked my previous job. I was a software engineer. I liked coding, but I burned out because I burned out. I'm a passionate person. I go deep into things, but I learned as I grew old to take breaks and contain my passion for things. So yeah, that's it's also easier for me. I don't know, like you say that you have you have your partner, and I don't have anybody. I barely have some friends that I meet from time to time, and when I meet with them, we made it, even if some of them are okay with talking veganism, even if some of them are not vegan, we made it a rule to not discuss veganism. Yeah, I can discuss some things about myself, like, oh, this person pissed me off or whatever, and discuss the absurdity of some conversations that I have. But as a rule, when I meet with some of them, let's not talk veganism. I want to talk something else. I want to hear some dumb shit. I want to hear something else.
You need a
Compartmentalize.
break, yeah.
Just need a break. Yeah. And it's not that I need a break from veganism. I need a break from non-veganism. That's the reality, right? Because veganism speaks to
Oh,
me. It's all of it speaks to me.
yes.
I need a break from the thought that there's so many non-vegans, because that's what fucking gets to me.
This is a beautiful way to put it. I like this better. I like this
Yeah,
way better. Because it's about like, it's about like because we're hyper focused on the victims of non-vegans. It's not veganism. It's so much better. I'm glad you said that. That's really great. It's powerful to say
yeah,
it like this because this is what it
yeah.
is.
This is what it. But this is what messes with us. It's not the. If I meet with
Yes.
vegan people, I'm like, yeah, okay,
Yeah.
so easy. Everything just flows with them. It's
Yeah.
it's 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 everything else that's difficult. Everything that is non-vegan, that's difficult. So
Yes. You're well put. I like that. You should make a short. No, probably not because then the non-vegans. Never mind. I just thought it was really good.
yeah, and by the way, speaking of, now that I have so many people watching the channel, and I've been meaning to say, and also Lucy, you should do the same thing. I will be making memberships. I have not started yet, but I will start memberships. And the reason for memberships is not to get money, although that would be kind of nice. I am, we're on the same page, but because I want to discuss vegan stuff. No non-vegan will pay to reach. I want to put out content that's only for members. Content only for members will be content only about veganism that only other vegans will see. So, you know, let's do that. And I think, Lucy, can you do that, by the way? Why is it that you can't monetize now?
Because I'm not allowed. Like it's not legal because I'm an immigrant and I don't have my green card yet. So
But can't you say you're from France, by the way, right? You said French,
yep.
right? Yeah, but can't you say you're living in France and just monetize? This is
Then
the
they won't
Romanian
give me my
session.
green card because if I leave the country, I am
Ah,
It's kind of canceled. It's weird, but
Yeah. Oh, that is annoying. And did you start the process of the green card?
well, I'm in the last steps.
Ah, okay. So that
Well,
means
where we?
anytime soon.
I don't know. I'm still waiting. I've been waiting for months, but that's normal. I don't
Am I
want to be in
right?
France because then I have to, like, my impact will be so lessened. Because if I have to do it in French, it's fair. It's just compared to English. Because let's face it, in France, it's very hard to get people who speak English enough to do outreach with them. So I
I
would
meet a
hope that
lot of them.
if I have to go back to France, I would probably move to like somewhere else in Europe where I can actually
Netherlands.
do outreach in English. Ugh. Hopefully, I
I,
see.
I get what you mean, you know, like I meet French people a lot on the streets, and none of them speak English or speak bad English, or it's a thing.
Yeah.
So your English is great, by the way. I always thought
I'm
you're
obsessed with
American.
it. Yeah.
I never thought you're like not American. At least to me,
Oh,
you always
nice.
sounded your English always sounded pretty good. So I was like,
I
okay.
think it's also because you're European and you're also like a second language English speaker. Because I feel
Yeah.
like native English speakers are like, "What is this accent?" Like, God damn it. But it's nice.
Okay.
You didn't know.
Okay, people in the chat, tell us which can you hear the accent in Lucie's conversations or in my conversations? Can you hear any
Yours
accent?
is
Would
very
you say
faint.
mine is very faint? Oh my god! Yeah, well,
I mean, to me.
yeah, same to me. For yours. So, oh, definitely, haha. Vegan
Whoops.
stunner lady, yes.
Yeah, see, I think that's what it is. But well, as long as they can understand me.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, they understand you. I think your accent, your non-accent, I think your English is great, Lucy. And
Thank you so much. Yours too.
yeah, and see, Corvid says we have faint accents. So there you go. Oh, everybody's nice.
It's very good to
Okay.
know. Awesome.
And I know, I wanted to discuss to ask you one more thing. Maybe it's a bit of a bigger topic. How do you feel about name the trade?
I like it. I don't have any issues with it. I mean, I watched Natalie's video on it. I thought there were interesting points, but I don't have a strong stance on it. I use it in outreach when people are saying, like, humans and animals are different, but they don't give me anything. I find it really helpful. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I discussed it with Brandon also in one of my streams, and I thought it's interesting that, like, name the trait. I feel like for me at least works especially well if you name the trait between a dog and a farm animal. Like, people will instantly get that, but the minute you put a human being, I feel like
Interesting.
most people, if they're not educated, they won't get it, and they'll just come to the barrier. Oh, you vegans are all crazy, like, calling
Yeah, but they
humans
still
that's
can give it. They give you stuff, but then you shoot it out of the park. I think I understand what you mean. I think it's a very good point. I think it can be very helpful, but also I feel like you can run into like the cultural barriers anyways. Like, well, it's because it's cultural, and then it's both are gonna have barriers. But I feel like for me in my outreach, because I do such a human slavery comparison, I need to do that. I feel like.
Yeah, to name the trait. Yeah, I see what you mean. Yeah, it's true. You do need to do it. But how do you phrase it, right? Because name the trait is one of those things that can be phrased in so many ways that how is it? Do you phrase it based on context specific? Is it context specific to you?
I usually stick to like what is it between a human and non-human animal that makes it okay to exploit a non-human animal but not a human. I think that's
Yeah.
easy. How do
Yeah,
you?
I did that a lot of the times, and I realized that they always answer saying this gives them the opportunity to answer, well, we're humans, they're animals, or any sort of ridiculous argument that they're using. Because if I specifically ask for the trait, what trait is it that humans have or what trait, or
Oh.
some people actually mention it the other way, which is even more interesting. What trait is it that if humans wouldn't have it anymore, it would justify treating them as animals, or something along those lines, right? Like, it's, you can make it in a lot of ways, but like, first of all, it's trait. I felt like for me that does differentiate it, if for people who know what trait is, because I run into people who don't speak very well English, so a lot of them may not know what trait is. But if they do know what trait is, it all of a sudden means something. And then you got to ask yourself, do you ask what trait should animals have to be considered? And I don't think that's a good one also, because then they again get lost in this, well, animals are not humans, so there's no trait. Or should you say, what trait should humans lose, or what trait is it that if a human wouldn't have it, they would be equally treated as an animal is, or something along those lines. Like, I don't have my exact
But I feel
expression right
like
now.
the belonging to a species is something you can, like, if they say that, well, then you can just say, like the thing about like a is the belonging to a particular group a good enough reason to discriminate someone, and I feel like that works the same kind of thing.
Well, that's a very good one. Let me write that down now. Belonging
So
to a
that's why I
group.
don't really use that, but I it's a good idea as well. I think they both work.
To a group.
And then you can see all the things like racism, sexism, all this stuff.
Yeah. Wow, I like that. That's a
And
good
also,
one.
it
I've
can be
been
helpful to know that in the past, Black people were actually considered to be non-human. That can bring it into perspective a little bit, because
I
it's like we have this weird demarcation between humans and other animals, as if like we're so like we're not animals or something, but we are animals. We're just one species amongst many. You know.
Yeah, and the only problem with this is that if the person at any point in time brings religion into it, then it's kind of difficult to
No,
they
no,
don't.
I actually found something really cool for that. Like, I was always like kind of puzzled what to do in the most efficient way, and to me, what works really well for now is that like slave owners thought that they believed that other animals were here, that Black people were here for them, just as you believe. It's your belief, that they are here for you. It's the same thing. And I've noticed that really worked really well actually for the people. Actually, I mean, I didn't do it along a lot of people. I don't actually encounter that too much, but the people I used it on worked really well.
Yeah, yeah. I saw.
Yeah.
You do really well with that. I think also uh, in US, slavery was a much heavier burden than it was in Europe, or US people feel it as a much heavier burden than European people do. Because like in Europe, yeah, people acknowledge slavery and it was bad, right? But they don't have such a huge burden on it, and we're like, yeah, slavery is
Use the
bad.
Holocaust for that. Ooh.
Yeah. That's
Right.
true. No, I like the.
But I feel like
Yeah,
it would work though. It would not be as powerful, but I think it would work. And by the
yeah.
way,
I
guys,
mean,
obviously you're welcome to use my method. I mean, mine and David Ciarina's method, because it's not just my method. But like, also, I would say, if you use my method, please make sure that sometimes you check in with what I'm doing, because I always make changes to it, and so there's a reason for all the changes, and maybe it could help your outreach also if you kept kind of track of what I'm doing. If you use it, but you don't have to. But just it would help, I think, because I make often changes for good reasons.
true.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah, it's important. Yeah. By the way, yeah, I don't think you have seen my method, the latest method, right? That the one that I
No, I have
adopted
to.
after you. Okay, so I don't have a
Next time I
video,
will.
but I don't have a video. But you have seen my that method where I ask how important is consent to you, right? Yeah, and I felt like the whole argumentation part about consent, you're right. Some people don't even grasp the idea of consent too much, or they can't find easy argumentations, whereas animals can't give consent, therefore, fuck that. So I start with power. I now discuss same line of questioning, but I start with should we abuse our power over animals? In that same sense. And then I ask, okay, do you think with great power comes great responsibility? I first ask them if they have a superhero, then I ask them this, and then I ask the same line of question, where should we exert power if somebody is vulnerable? Should we exert power if they're drugged, or or a country member? Or I felt like it worked with everybody that I talked to about it. Like, everybody just understood this whole idea of power, and there's nothing really that you can say. We do have power over animals. We do exert our power over animals, and we shouldn't be doing it. So it's an interesting perspective. What's your take on that, by the way?
Seems awesome. I used like this
Okay.
thing, like Debug Your Brain did that. He started with like, with great power comes great responsibility, and so I did
Yeah.
that, and I really liked it. I think it's great.
Okay.
I want to. I'm gonna react to that one next month.
Oh, I
But I
haven't
haven't
filmed
planned it.
anything like that.
You
Just
haven't done
filmed
it? Okay.
I
Well,
filmed it live.
maybe.
I did, because I do outreach live also sometimes, but I haven't made a particular video. I'll do a particular. I wanted to do this particular video, but wouldn't you know it? I actually thought about you, because I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go there. I'm gonna try this method. And this one person comes, and a night before that, I used ChatGPT. Hint: use ChatGPT to ask, what question could I ask the person before starting the video to get a grasp on kind of how they are, or what is it that they care about, but a question that they don't really know that it's about veganism, so that it doesn't give any hints, right? So ChatGPT came up with this really good question, and that is, what is a social cause that you're passionate about or actively support? And I felt like that was such a good question to ask. So I started asking this person, what is a good social cause that you care about? And instantly this person tells me, oh, well, I care about, I go on campuses in US, and I care about that women are not abused and stuff like that. And instantly I realized, okay, well, it's safe to assume that you care a lot about consent. And he said, yeah, consent is everything. And I'm like, okay. I switched the social experiment. So that's why I didn't do the power one, but I did the consent one, because I found one person that actually cared a lot about consent, and it worked on him. At least so it seemed. But yeah, that's why I didn't film. Long story short, I'm sorry.
Well, you think you will film it before next month? Like
100%.
mid-month? Okay, well then I'll react to it if it's on your channel.
Of course, I'm just waiting for the good weather. I wanted to go today, but today it was, as I said, raining, snowing, and sun. So yeah. Okay, I have a couple more questions, and then I think it's already long enough, and I'm tired. So okay, these are, like, I guess not necessarily super serious questions, but like, what is an argument against veganism that you dislike the most? I think I told you that.
I think the sentient stuff, like when they are questioning the sentience of animals, that really bothers me a lot. And also when just like you can't compare humans to animals, kind of thing, like to other animals, stuff like that, like human supremacy and sentience. It really bothers me. Or like the appeal to hypocrisy and stuff, or like the crop deaths, like as if we love that. Like, I mean, all of them really, but really, it's just like these the sentience, probably the worst one, I think.
The sentience.
What
So when
about
they
you?
question animal sentience.
Oh my god. Yeah, and this. Yeah, never mind. And what about you? I don't know.
That doesn't
Yours.
happen as often, to be honest. What is the argument against vegan dislike? That doesn't happen as often. I honestly hate. Let me think, because lately it's been a bit different. Yeah, like I think crop deaths is the one that I hate the most, to be honest. It doesn't always pop up in conversations on the street, but it always pops up in comments. Always.
Yeah, like Marcel says, like, Marcel says crop deaths is not an argument against veganism, it's an argument against plant-based utilitarianism. Yeah, it is. It's like, we should reduce the harm, but it's not a vegan issue. It's a different issue.
Yeah.
And we care about this too. Duh.
Yeah, it's just, I guess, some...
Yeah.
Yeah, that's one. I'll go next. What is your favorite vegan dish nowadays?
That I can make or can't make? Because I can't make a lot.
Okay,
Um,
maybe one that's easy to make and it's your favorite because it's easy to make. Maybe one that's delicious and it's your favorite because it's delicious, or maybe one that you just like how it is, or maybe it's good for your nutrition. Like a favorite doesn't mean necessarily anything else other than maybe you get it from somewhere else. Maybe your husband makes it, or I don't know, like whatever.
I'm a foodie, so I love a lot of food. I'm
Mm.
obsessed with chocolate, and I love tofu and like a ramen, and I love pizza. I love so many things. Like it's not even worth. Like I don't know. I can't choose. It hurts my soul. What
If
about
you were
you?
wait, if you could only choose two dishes out of the not one but two, I'll give you this. It's easier. Two fucking balloons. If you could choose if you could choose two dishes from that would be that you would take for the rest of your life, which one
Uh,
would you?
that's a nightmare. Tofu. It has to be tofu at least, and
Okay.
I love like the naans, or like the naan, the Indian naan. Oh,
Oh, that's good.
and I'm French, so bread is important. I know that's true. French people are obsessed with bread. That's very true. Yeah. What about you?
So tofu and naan. Tofu and naan. Interesting.
What about you?
Okay, so for me recently, I've been making. I'm a lazy person. Recently, when it comes to cooking, I used to spend 3 or 4 hours making dishes, like making things from scratch, everything. I used to like cook a lot,
Funny,
but
I'm
now
actually
I'm
doing that now, and I used to never do that. We switched.
it's interesting. Yeah, it's we switched. So now I'm lazy. So now I bought a air fryer, and it's just game changer. So now I just buy this motherfucking piece. I can't show my hands in this camera. So now I just get some like they're called kriltje in Dutch. They're like these really really small potatoes. They're like smaller than my finger. They're like this and round. And I just put some garlic powder, onion powder, and like some curcuma, or make like some curry condiments on them. Spread them in the potatoes, put them in the air fryer, so air fried potatoes, and alongside some like uh, vegan chicken. I'm really into vegan chicken lately. It's so versatile. I just bam place it in a pan and instantly instantly make it. I don't necessarily care for the. I actually really like the texture. Also, I like that it's not like meat. I like that it's different. I like that
Yeah.
it's it's yeah. So that's kind of what I do. And with kimchi, because I adore kimchi. I eat 2 jars of kimchi per week. So
Yeah. I can't do kimchi.
no.
It's hit or miss. I feel like it's very strong.
It is indeed. It's a strong thing, but yeah, you poop really well with it. It's
Well, it's fermented food, so it's always good for your gut. I feel like,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that sense, yeah, it is. Yeah, it's by the way, also sometimes when I speak to people on the street, I don't think it's good that I do this, but sometimes I explain it to them that, listen, taste, all of the cravings that you get, they come from the gut, which is true. So that means that the more you start eating something else, the more easier it will be to eat something else. So even if you find it
True.
hard at first, it's not always going to be hard.
It's also good to tell them though that I think that might be problematic because like people will be like, kind of thing. I feel like it would be maybe better to tell them that every craving you have, you can veganize. Really, like it's true. You
Yeah,
can you
that's a
can
good
do
point.
it.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I never said that every craving you have you can veganize it. I said every recipe, but every craving sounds much better.
Well, it's
Every
true. Like
crave.
these days, they make everything. Like even if you want like an egg like that's like like poached, I think it's called. You can have that vegan. They make that now, and you
It's
can learn how to cook it. You know.
yeah, it's really there's no excuse. That's the reality.
I mean, even if that
Uh
was your excuse, it's freaking stupid.
yeah,
But still,
exactly.
yeah.
what is, and speaking of, what is the worst logical fallacy the that that carnists commit? The worst one.
Okay, personally, because I don't know what it would be the worst objectively, but personally, the one I hate the most because it's so
Yeah,
damn stupid is the appeal to popularity. It's so damn stupid
interesting.
because like they know, you know, like the freaking Nazi
Everybody does
Germany or
it.
whatever. Yeah, like most people were silent towards Nazi people, and they were like they were actually. I think most people were saying like, "Ooh, the Jews are there" or something like that. You know, they were helping. Doesn't matter. Eh, anyways,
Yeah,
that's one of the. I mean, I hate all of them, of course, but that's the one that really I think is really damn stupid and gets to me.
it is
How about
indeed.
you?
Yeah, for
The
me,
appeal
it's
to
the appeal to
nature.
nature.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's
it's
very dumb
it's just
too.
I fucking hate that one. I just like it sets us. It's like if the appeal to popularity is let's say if the whole argument that carnists make would be a sandwich, appeal to popularity would be, let's say, the whatever contents of the sandwich, and the appeal to nature would be just like the spread or anything else. It's like it's that one thing. It's like that glue that mm, it just
It's
makes
an
them.
status quo thing. It's an
It's,
appeal to status quo. Really, both, right?
yeah,
An
it's
appeal to status quo.
appeal to
You're
status
making me
quo. I
want a
haven't had
sandwich.
that.
This is ridiculous.
Yeah, make a sandwich. Make a sandwich. But like, yeah, because you like bread. I mean,
Yes. Don't make these metaphors. You're making me hungry.
yeah, yeah. No, no, no. I just like. I feel like if people wouldn't be appealing to nature, they would be so much easier to approach them, because they would instantly understand that. Well, shit, it doesn't, because people call meat natural, which is ridiculous. People like, I feel like so many people, because yeah, they need to understand the problem as we discussed, but I feel like so many people are stuck in the practical side of it without even, like, even if you meet them on the street, if they would, it's like this, the way I see it. It's not that we should be approaching necessary practicability, but you would agree that it's easier to approach a person that's plant-based versus a person that's a meat eater, right? It's much easier to make them understand what veganism is than
Yes, because
to.
they're less identified.
Yeah, exactly, right? So in that sense, I feel like a lot of people, a lot of people have this problem with nature, and it's natural, and it pisses me off. It pissed me
And they
off
take
also before being vegan.
medications and they eat fries and
Oh,
they wear clothes.
yeah, exactly. They go on cars, they go on planes, but it's natural to. Ugh. Okay, and if you could, this is if you could, one fallacy from the face of the earth, just erase it. Nobody could make that fallacy ever again. Which one would you do?
I don't remember all of them. I
Okay,
think
fair.
um, the appeal to hypocrisy, maybe, because that's just
Ooh,
that wastes a lot of time.
it's an
Not
interesting
when
one.
like you know, like as a fallacy, you know, when it's a fallacy. Uh, Maybe because I think that's a huge one for vegans. Because anytime you're trying to actually talk about it seriously, they'll just deflect with that.
That's a very good one. Yeah,
What do
yeah.
you think?
I mean, I'm thinking about the appeal to popularity. I would remove it, honestly, like the one that you mentioned, because like all the other appeals are kind
I mean,
of.
all of them.
Yeah, all of them are ridiculous, but to all the others, you kind of have like some logical thing that you can tackle. But with
I mean,
appeal
you
to
can do all
popularity,
of them, but it's just some of them are more persistent than others. I feel like in the
fair enough.
excuses.
Fair enough. I just feel like if you wouldn't have anybody appealing to popularity, then everybody would be like, well, it doesn't matter what everybody does. Yeah, it's true. Doesn't matter what everybody does, so I can do my own thing, right? That imagine being in a set of friends, appeal like talking to a set of people, and nobody would care what the other person actually thinks, but rather just thinking for themselves. That's already huge, if you ask me. So yeah. But then maybe the appeal to nature I would remove.
This one you can't at all. No, but this one I understand more because it used to be big on me. Like I used to not understand, like because I was, I've been an environmentalist and stuff like this. So you kind of, because you kind of confuse that, like nature good and environmentalism, which is very different. It's very different. Sustainability has got nothing to do with nature good. But I didn't
Yeah.
get that because it's because I never really thought about it too much, I guess. But I understand that one more.
And that's a very good point that you make. It's true. A lot of people, they also kind of see veganism and environment and nature as these somehow related things. Like
And then
they group.
it's not natural. It's a very conflicted, very
Yeah,
weird.
yeah. And then they say it's not natural, exactly, which is even weird that it's true. Okay, if you could pick one person in the world to make vegan instantly, which one would you choose? It could be a friend, a family, or even a public figure.
I think it would have to be like the richest. I think it's Jeff Bezos, like the richest guy, because obviously we could get a lot of shit done. So
So Elon Musk, who's that? Is that Elon?
I think it's Jeff Bezos, the most rich person
Okay.
on earth. Whoever's the richest.
Mr.
What about
Beast.
you?
Mr. Beast.
Ooh, good.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Jeff Bezos could finance so many of these Mr. Beasts to actually do this.
I feel like if Mr. Beast went vegan, 1 million people would go vegan like that. I think instantly would go vegan.
Yeah, but I think that if you have like he has like billions and billions of dollars, he could pay so many activists to do their thing, and then we would have many Mr. Beasts.
He could, but we don't know that he would, right? Because he
No,
would
no,
be
if he was vegan.
I mean, we know there's a lot of celebrities that are vegan who have a lot of money. Do they pay anybody to do activism? I don't think they do. But Mr. Beast,
So
whenever he makes his videos, he always puts a stake in the video. He always says, "Oh, because I'm giving you the best food. Oh, look at me!" Like he always emphasizes, and I feel like he's such a huge. Like I would definitely Mr. Beast or Marquez Brownlee or one of these huge influencers who are actually huge influencers. They're fucking huge influencers. I think Mr. Beast is probably the biggest influencer out there right now. So or a Kardashian or some shit like that. I don't know. Somebody who would influence opinions. I don't know if rich people influence opinions as much as.
Oh, they do. They pay people to be able to influence opinions. Like they could do so much.
That's also true.
They could lobbying in the government. I'm sorry, but
Lobbying
like
is
that
a
would do a
big,
lot.
yeah.
A lot. Like you could pay for campaigns. You could pay for so much stuff. You could enable activism way more.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
could
I
pay
wish
for ads, whatever.
Yeah, we just need what 30 billion? No, what 120, $200 billion?
I
That's
don't know.
how much they. Yeah, okay. Okay, so if we can't get them to be vegan, we gotta raise 200 billion. Everybody in the chat, just donate until we get to 200 billion.
I mean, we don't need that much money. It's just it would help a lot. We can, it would be very influential, I think.
It's insane, honestly. Like I don't know that's I don't know what 200 billion is so much that you can actually you could topple the whole animal agriculture with 200 billion dollars. It's
And all of everything.
everything.
Not
Like you
only
could
animal
literally
agriculture. Everything.
I think you could make a huge difference in the whole humanity in a really interesting way. But it's interesting that you see some of them actually have good intentions, right? Like if you think Bill Gates or Elon Musk, or I don't
Do
necessarily
they?
appreciate. I don't appreciate any of them, but if you see their interviews, they think they're doing good.
Yeah. Well, what does that mean? You know what I mean? Like people might think they're doing good, but they don't. They're just. It's like PR, like whatever. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, and my final question: how do you envision a vegan world? And let me ask you this question: is like, in 500 years in the future, 100 years in the future, it doesn't really matter when. It just matters that everybody's vegan then. Everybody. There's no exception. What is something that you, let's say, if you time travel to that time, what is something that you want to see, do, know about, or you see, like that's kind of how do you envision a vegan world? That's kind of this question that I want.
I want to know what they're focusing on now. Because I feel like if everybody's vegan, everything else has been solved in terms of social justice. I feel like they're just focusing on like how to. I feel like they would be focused on how to not even um, kill plants and stuff like that. I feel like they'd be making their like Star Trek food, for example, or like they would
Oh
be
yeah.
very. I think that technology would be so advanced that they would be able to like make it so that it's a almost completely peaceful world, like something like that. And um, I think everything else would be kind of solved. But I'm not sure that we will even survive, to be honest, as a species. So I'm not sure. I'm not sure that would happen, but maybe not in 500 years. Maybe I don't know. I don't know.
Interesting. 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 So you're not sure. Okay, I would go deeper into why you're not sure that we're going to survive as a species.
Environment. Come on. Well, I think there's
Fair.
going to be water wars, and there's going to be stuff
There
like
will be.
that.
I think we're always going to survive as species. I don't think that we're ever going to die as species. We're just like we're like a mold for Earth. You know, maybe a lot of us are going to die because of environmental reasons, and there's going to be wars because of environmental reasons, and there's going to be all sorts of things. But we will prevail because there's rich people who have caves in the mountains where even
Yeah,
if
but
you
the
do
climate change
nuclear,
doesn't. I don't know. Maybe you're right. I don't know.
I also don't know. Like it's obviously
It's depressing.
speculation. Yeah, exactly. What I do know and what I truly believe is that the world will go vegan. Like if there is no major world war to stop the movement and then derail it, because a major world war could stop the movement, it could derail, and since obviously that would be the concern of most people. But if they say if that doesn't happen, hopefully, I believe that the world will go vegan within my lifetime. That's just something I believe.
What do you mean by the world?
Well, okay, well, maybe not vegan. I'm sorry. Let me rephrase. The world will go plant-based in my lifetime.
I I think I don't know. I think probably I'll see 30% plant based, something like that. Maybe. That's. I think it's a.
Interesting.
I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to to how you call it, jinx us. It's dumb
Fair.
to say that, but
The only way I see it is that the minute that precision fermentation becomes a thing for any other of the products that were normally animal based, so farmers are the minute farmers are incentivized to change, things will change fast. But right now they're not, so things aren't changing that fast. But the minute they're, like, and that, if they remove the subsidies, if they help them transition, if they subsidize the other side, I think it's going to change fast. I think it's just it will change fast,
I think it's about
especially.
the number of vegans, because obviously that's gonna happen when we have enough vegans to work on this stuff.
Exactly. Yeah. So
So
it's
there's like
just a
a
matter.
cap. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's just a matter of reaching that critical mass of vegans. But once we do, I think it's going to move very fast. But
Yeah.
reaching that
It
critical
has.
mass of vegans, it's going to take the more. So, if, as I said, in my lifetime, let's say if I live up to 90 years, and it's going to happen when I'm 85, uh, it the first 75 years will probably be reaching that mass of vegans, and the next 10 or 5, like I really do believe most of the time will be just getting the mass amount of population to be more people to be vegan. But once that happens, it will switch fast.
I think what's most probable to happen is that there's gonna be so many. I think our society, as we know, it's gonna collapse. I'm not like saying like I'm a conspiracy theorist. It's just that when you look at the trajectory of what we're doing and like the predictions from experts, like climate experts, they are saying right
Yeah,
now that if you have a child, you know they will have a difficult life. It's a consensus among scientists, just for the environment. It's a consensus. So it's like I mean, I feel like it is going to be just a lot of deaths, and the society, because of that, will not be able to maintain itself, and there will be people like kind of dispersed everywhere, and we might not be able to have even the internet or anything like that. And then how do you change things? I don't know. I don't know. I have a pretty dark vision of the future, so
I see.
uh,
Yeah. Yeah, you have a more bleak version of it than I
well,
do,
it
I
feels
guess.
realistic to me.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, I mean, to me, if you want me to speak realistically, not optimistically, because that was optimistically, realistically speaking, is, um, yeah, climate change will fuck us. I agree with that. I don't think it will be good, but I also don't think it will be. I think it will be very bad, like very, very bad. When we'll look at numbers and we'll compare, we'll say, "Holy fucking shit! It is bad," but I don't think it will feel as bad as it will be. That's what I want to say, because
Ooh.
that in a sense we will evolve. In a sense, we will know that it will affect these countries. There will be mass migrations from those countries to the another countries, and then we will deal with that. We will learn that mass migration will be part of it, and then our sentiment towards mass migration will, like, basically every consequence that climate change will do, everything, our sentiment will slowly change towards it because it will feel normal to us, just
Yeah, I
like
get
it
what you
does
mean.
just like it does nowadays, right? So in that sense, yes, it will be much worse, but in some regards, but we won't feel it as necessarily much worse. I don't know if that's good or bad, but let's not end on a bad note. So let's just end on a good note, that we're fighting for animals. More and more people go vegan. And I see that more and more people are open towards veganism. More and more people go vegan. More and more vegan products appear. So something is changing in that direction. I don't know if you
There's
feel the
more
same
like
way.
talk of it on the news and everything and social media.
Exactly.
That's
Things are changing in that direction. And maybe they're not changing as fast as we all want to, but they are
course.
changing.
Would
And
never be fast enough anyways, so
yeah.
we can just do what we
So
can.
we do what we can and we fight for it, right? That's all that is. Thank you, Lucy, for being here.
Thank you so much. It was very interesting
It was
to
a
talk
really
with
good
you.
conversation. Yeah. Yeah. I feel it got a bit heated with the lab grown meat, but
That's okay. Conflict is part of um activism getting better and stuff. I mean, it's not personal. It's just because it's triggering conversations. But I think
I
it was
took
very
it
nice,
personal.
very good. He took it personally.
No, of course not. No, I get it. You're right. No, I'm I don't like conflict. I guess that's my whole thing.
Well, yeah,
So
no one likes it, but it makes us grow.
it's true. You're absolutely 100% right. It makes us grow, and I appreciate you coming here. I
Me
very
too.
much
Thank you.
appreciate your feedback for my videos. The feedback has been great. I am looking for more feedback. I want to improve, and it goes without saying for everybody in the chat also to please provide more feedback, and we
Same
want to
here.
improve.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I think it's a very healthy mindset.
exactly. We need to improve these methods. We need to get better. We need to, like, I appreciate if somebody was watching a video and then at some point pauses and says, just say something else. And actually there's people who comment on my videos and who give me exactly the time, and then they say, oh,
Same,
this, you
yeah.
could have said this. Yeah, which is super helpful,
Hmm.
super helpful to improve. I don't always agree with them, but they are super helpful. Yeah, and in that sense, let me put on this beautiful song that I always do at the end of the live streams. Thank you, Lucy, for being here. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It was a really long conversation, right? It was 4 hours almost. Honestly, it flew by for me. I hope it was the
I'm
same
glad I
for
came. Thank you
everybody.
so much for inviting me. Appreciate that.
Yeah,
And of course,
yeah.
if you have feedback for me as well, I would love that.
Yes. Let's all give each other feedback. Let's all encourage each other. go out there, speak on behalf of the animals. Don't be afraid to speak up. I really always want to emphasize on that. Don't be afraid.
And don't be afraid also to ask other activists for help, because I've done that and I've only received so much help from so many activists, and I really appreciate that. So
Yeah.
thank
Exactly.
you, everybody, for being here.
Lucy Presidente. Yeah. If you haven't subscribed to Lucy for some reason, subscribe to Lucy. If you haven't subscribed to me for some reason, subscribe to me, Vegan Power Lab, in case you don't know. And yeah, live vegan, talk about veganism, tell everybody, be vegan.
Educate yourself to get better.
Educate yourself, and also take breaks from time to time. So
take care of yourself as well.
Take care of yourself, yeah. So it's important that in order to fight for animals, that we also take care of ourselves. It's true. It's true. So for that, thank you, everybody. I hope you have a good evening, good rest of the day, and I'll
thank
see
you for all you do, people.
Yeah, thank you for all you do, and it's immensely helpful that you were here. It's immensely helpful that you comment, that you it's all helpful, and a lot of you also create content yourself, so it's also helpful. So thank you for everything, and I don't know. I hope we have inspired you to go out there and speak. That's what I want from all of these things. I hope we have inspired you to go out there, speak, and yeah, speak about veganism. Just speak, yell it out loud. Okay, thank you, everybody, and have a good day.